and welcome all. This is Dice of Ages presenting CrestVahllen, the Argent Flame forged in chaos. This is episode, I believe, 53 to 50. 53. This will be episode 53, obviously, because we split them up. But welcome to the live stream, or not. I'm your not-so-humble Dungeon Master, TJ, and we're going to go around the table, and of course, the table. We're in the table. We're on the table, introduce everybody, or we could talk about what we did. What, does anybody have a story? Does anybody have a story? Nobody has story time? Come on.
Did you sit on your couch last night?
Oh, right. Noel and I saw a laser show of Pink Floyd at the museum last night.
Right. Hey, which museum again?
It was the Denver Museum of Nature and Science.
Okay, so the one downtown.
I fell asleep a couple times, cried a few times. It was great. Loved it. Oh yeah. So, and I was also watching. I don't know if you guys have heard of this show called For All Mankind, where it's about if the Russia beat the U.S. to the moon in a different timeline, and so the space race never ended, and they kept going, and like a bunch of money kept funneling the space race, and Nixon was still in charge and everything, and it is really well written. I'm gonna plug watch For All Mankind. I've been crying every like 20 minutes of every episode while I've been watching that. Is fucking, but space really gets me every time. I'm like, we're going to space. I get really, really teary, and I'm like really into that. But anybody else want to plug something? Plug your neighborhood watch? No. All right, guys, fucking crickets. Come on, give me something. Did you just sit on the couch all week?
Some of us have jobs, TJ.
Okay.
Yeah. I think everybody that's in the U shape, other than at that side of the table.
It's not like I spent 70 hours a week.
I watched Sandman.
How is it?
Yes, Sandman was good. So yes,
I'm just catching.
I have to say,
now. I'm in season 4.
the diner episode from Sandman was beautifully well done, and so was the. I'm not gonna.
I know, that's why I was just like. That's why I'm just giving you that sign.
No spoilers, and also the walkabout with his sister. Was also really, really, really well done.
So Sandman, like from comic books?
Yeah.
Yes.
Neil
Yeah,
Gaiman.
it's Neil
Gaiman. It's actually from it's technically part of the DC Comics universe.
Right.
But yes.
Really? Okay, I have to check it out.
Yeah. It looks.
Where's it at?
Fucking on Netflix.
What's it on? Okay, I've got it.
It's on Netflix. The set design is superb. The writing is superb. The dialogue is superb. The acting is meh.
Depends on the actor.
Depend on the actor, yeah. The main character, the actual Sandman, I'm just like, dude, I get you're supposed to be stoic, but give me something more, my dude. There's very little that I got from him.
I did like seeing the actress who played Clara from Doctor Who in the previews and stuff like that. Like, I'm a little excited for it, and at the same time, I'm worried that I've seen all the good scenes in like the trailers.
She plays Joanna Constantine, who is supposed to be Constantine. I don't know if you know, but Keanu Reeves played Constantine in that movie. Into the light I grant thee. That whole thing.
And then there's there's the Constantine in Heroes of Tomorrow too on WB. So trust me, I know who Constantine is.
Yeah, but not my favorite rendition or interpretation of Constantine, but that's just me. I don't know. It wasn't my favorite, but that's okay. They weren't on screen for very long. But I do love Clara. That I don't remember her actress's name.
I don't either.
But she was a great actor in Doctor Who. Did really appreciate her as an actor there. Okay, so without further ado, I have the distinct pleasure of having at the table with me and joining me in this union of friendship and nerddom, Adam.
I'm Adam. I play the Gnome Artificer on the team. Right now I'm going by Boots, but I also go by Gizmo and other names. And for shame, I am the reason we are late today.
Yes, for shame. Everybody, shame.
Shame.
All right. Sorry, I'll give you a punishment in game or something. Or maybe I won't. Who knows?
You want to go last. The information
right.
the book she'd read today.
Kevin.
Hey, I'm Kevin. I play Cole, and man, did anybody see my worm last time? It was fucking huge.
Oh my god! I thought we were supposed to wait until law before we do the not safe.
It was just perfect. It was just too perfect, man. I'm sorry.
And I'm gonna see my worm. It was huge. God, it sounds like some incel crap.
Looks can be deceiving.
That's a great one to go with it.
Because it was an illusion. I
was hoping somebody got it.
Were you?
You're like, hey.
Were you compensating for something?
I was really hoping somebody was going to pick up on that and say it. Thank you.
No, it was the hand smack. It was the high
okay.
five
He got.
that freaked him
That
out.
can happen.
Yeah.
I think probably a good idea anyway.
Yeah,
just to
we'll take the
that.
bone. Can you imagine somebody go like they just stand there and they cast disguise self and nothing changed? They go like, "What changed?" They go like, "You'll find out." Ugh,
But it's still just an illusion.
it's still just an
So
illusion.
that's just going to be very
Is it
disappointing.
in yet?
It looks like it's in.
Okay, all right. Jesus, we're not supposed to be this type of podcast, but I guess we are now.
You know what?
Or vodcast.
All I had to say was a joke. You're the one who started us walking down
Well, what
that
would you
path.
expect me to? You fucking dangle. Never mind. You know what? Okay.
You're gonna
Oh
use the word
God, I
dangle?
did.
Yep, that's where that went.
Okay. Kenton.
I'm Kenton. I play Argus, our dwarf cleric of the light. And exterminators, you always call the cleric. Because we burn it out with radiant fire.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I was very upset. I'm still upset.
I mean, I was planning trying to centralize if they get released where I can actually do the most.
Yeah.
I was
I was
all over trying to figure out
I'm
how
still a
to
little
do
butthurt about that, really, honestly. I had all these cool plans, and then you were just like, nope. And I'm like, I guess that's the beauty of D&D, though, is that, like, the DM has, like, oh, this could possibly happen, and then you burn everything to the ground. And I'm like,
Speaking as a fellow
Well,
DM, yeah,
literally.
it is fucking crazy when that happens.
and the lovely and intelligent Noelle.
Hi, I'm Noelle. Today I'm playing Trishani Ankmut, the Kenrin wizard who's a blade singer, blade dancer. It's somewhere in between. But you know what? There's no harm in charm.
I had a dream the other day. I think it was last week. I had a dream of. I think it must have been me like dissociating into the character that you charmed, because I was at home and I had made a bunch of food for dinner and you never showed up. And I was just there. Eventually, I ate some of the food and wrapped it up, put it in Tupperware, put it in the fridge, and sat with the tub of ice cream and watched Netflix. And then I wake up the next morning, and you're asleep on the couch downstairs. And I'm like, "What happened?" And you just said, "You snooze, you lose." And I was like, "What?" So I feel for this guy that you left hanging.
Except
know,
for he would have been fine, because after an hour he would have been in the middle of doing that, going, "What the fuck am I making
Exactly.
food for?"
It was a dream. Yeah, it was a dream. It didn't actually happen. Although I would believe that. Never mind. I have been. It's funny. My circadian rhythm is so messed up that I just sleep whenever I get a chance. A couple hours here, a couple hours there, and so I've been spending most time in like the lore lounge here, the dungeon. And I sometimes will just head over to the little like couch bed over there and grab a couple winks and then get back to work. And so I haven't been in the same bed as Noelle for like a week. And Noelle's upset. Sometimes she comes down here and just sleeps there and is like, "I miss you." And I'm like, "I'm sorry, I have a bunch of work to do." And so
It is a comfortable little.
it is
couch.
very comfortable. You've fallen asleep on it.
Oh,
a couple
multiple times, yes.
On strength.
It's much more comfortable than the stairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both occasions we've fallen asleep during our games.
Yeah, it happens.
one
And
was hiding
last but
behind.
not least, no,
Nope,
actually
not
not last. Log. I have to prepare myself. for this.
So I am Cody, and I play our bugbear warlock.
Log jamming. Remember, kids, if you ever encounter a sweet little old lady trying to sell you her box, ask how much she charges for half and half first. You always want to get the best deal, but most importantly, make sure you have protection. You don't know where that box has been. For all you know, it's a mimic.
Hey, I like mimic boxes.
That's why she sold it to you.
You just gotta watch out for the
I
teeth.
don't know what to say, so I'm gonna get a donut.
You just gotta watch out for the
You
teeth.
thought mine was bad. Jeez.
Go ahead, Demetrius.
I don't think they can hear you on the microphone. TJ.
Go ahead, Demetrius.
There we go.
My players have complained that in the recording, because our new mic setup is so nice, that I eat very loudly, and that so I'm going to go over here.
So last week, the numbers that I had mentioned was 319, if you remember. So this is kind of a question for the group, just in general, because I'm still kind of new to this game. When you picked your character, would you say that you picked a character that you could easily relate to? Like, that's part of your personality, that... Seriously. This is an honest question.
Gizmo has nothing to do with me.
Nothing.
I'm sure.
Why don't I believe that, Adam?
I think Cole was a kind of a wish on stuff that I wish I actually had the ability to do, but I have no natural talent or skill in that direction at all.
I mean, I don't know. It just kind of evolved. I mean, it's more I pick a backstory and then the personality comes out as it goes.
Got you.
Cole's personality when I wrote his backstory is completely different than the Cole you guys have met.
As a second hand or a third hand observer for that, I wouldn't say there's a couple different ways that people can go about it. Sometimes people gravitate towards characters that they would like to see actualized in their life, but like can't given our circumstances or their circumstances or just like, you know, the way the world works. So there's like, oh, I always wanted to be like, you know, this superhero who can cast spells. So they wanted to do that. Other people kind of gravitate towards things that they actually do identify with and that that a bunch of their personality does carry off. And sometimes people go the exact opposite direction and go like, I want the straggliest piece of shit, horrible, like crappy thing that I just want to play, and just because they want to be like, I made up this character, I want to get into the life of this character and have fun just being this character. And there's a bunch of different ways that a lot of people look about it. I'll definitely say one of the things I do find as a trend, or at least as something that's common, is that one of the first characters when you play a game, a TTRPG similar to like D&D, is that one of the first characters you make is very similar to who you are. It's a reflection of you. It's kind of like a reflection of you. Yeah, it's very similar. There are definitely some qualities, quite a few, that do get reflected in the character.
I'm not going to lie. When Cole and Log hang out, that is literally how I was with my friends in high school. There's a reason my life is where it's at.
So I've noticed this trend. Like the first character is like you, but on steroids. But plus with powers and abilities and other things, so you can still so it makes it a lot easier for you to get into character, and it's something that's easier for you to create because you're already already have kind of a shoe into that character. The second character is wild. It's completely tangent, often something that you wanted to do, but you're waiting for your first character to die or to be done with that campaign, and it's something that you wanted to do and you wanted to fool around and play around. And then your third character is you kind of cutting your teeth on something completely new. At least that's what I've noticed. And that's the way I have done it. Tell me if I'm wrong, if anybody.
And how about you, Cody? Like how?
I mean, well, there's the way I envisioned playing Log, but then he ended up having a 9 intelligence. So that kind of completely changed how I ended up playing him, and then it just kind of evolved from there.
And then Noelle, what about you? What would you say?
So for the Ankh-Moot sisters, I definitely have always this like little chaotic voice in my head anyway, but I try to be lawful and good, right, in my real life. So this was an opportunity.
Saccharinely lawful. Good in real life.
Know. So this was an opportunity to kind of bring that element out a little bit and have fun with it there. So that was kind of it's kind of like highlighting a bit of my personality.
Be bad, but with no consequences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
With no real world consequences, at least.
Right. Right. Well, and not bad. It's just
it all depends on what philosophy stroke you collide to. Because if we create these people in another world with our own minds, you really create a lot of consequences for the Ankh-Moot sisters.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm glad that this kind of started the conversation, because about a month ago, I started really thinking about the character
Eleazar,
Dragonborn Paladin, and why I so connected to the character of a paladin, and the things that I've kind of picked up on a paladin, unless you just play just like an evil character, is they always fight for the underdog. Kind of that holy knight.
There is the thing of like the Oathbreaker Paladin, which is technically evil. Like they broke their oath and now they're working for the other side. But yes, please go on.
Right. So there's different levels, but the ideal or the idea of a paladin is typically holy knight, fights for the underdog.
Some
and
sort
then-
of deity.
Yeah.
And then usually aligns with whatever alignment the deity has to be.
Right.
Usually anything from like chaotic neutral to lawful good.
Right. And then, so with that, he's able to do so because of his powers, his strength. He's the quote unquote tank of the group, essentially. And so as I was thinking about that, I thought about the fact that I really associate with the fighting for the underdog piece. Just real quick, as some of you know, I was born in Compton, and
Straight outta.
yep, and my friend Robert Bradley, he was my best friend. He lived next door to me. He was the only white kid in my neighborhood. Like literally, he was the first time I actually interacted with a white person because of where I lived at. And because of his differences, he got picked on. Well, back then, I was younger, strong, and one time
You strong? Look at you.
No.
You said you were a linebacker. What are you talking about?
and I saw him getting picked on at the bus stop, and I defended him. And when I defended him at that point in time, we became really close. Like, he became like my best friend because I just have an issue with seeing people being picked on. I've always had a problem with that. I've always had a problem with seeing people force their power onto the underdog, quote unquote. And so I really started to think about it. That's why I chose a paladin, because of that oath of vengeance, standing up for like right and protecting those who can't always protect themselves.
Righting the wrongs.
And it was crazy because we became really close after that. And I remember one weekend he went camping, and like that Sunday night, I heard some stuff on the news, and I stood up and just looked at it, and it said how this young kid died in a drowning accident. And I didn't connect the two. Well, on Monday, school started, and I come to find out that my best friend had died in a drowning accident, and it was Robert. And it was always weird to me how the school never said anything about it. Like, they never, and I'm 50, and it still bothers me to this day how they never acknowledged the fact that he had died, and that really bothered me. And even now, it bothers me. And so I've always had this protecting those who can't protect themselves. But the first part of that, if you recall, as I said, is I was physically able to protect him in school, because when
You're a
kids
bigger
knew I
dude.
stood up for them, they wouldn't fuck with them then at that point.
Right.
Because they knew it was going to be on.
I may want to fuck with him, but I don't want to fuck with him.
Yeah.
Right. And as some of you know, well, everyone here knows, I was diagnosed with cancer. And so I've been going through that whole cancer fight. And strangely enough, Eleazar was put out of commission, and he was thrown in jail. And he had to find a way to kind of build himself back up again. And so as I was sitting there and I was thinking about who he is as a character, he defends people because of his moral compass, but he also uses his physicality to do so, his strength. Because that's how he can help others, is through his personal strength. And so I'm going to make this short because I know it's been
Too late.
rambling for like a while now. I know, huh? But 319 is actually what I weighed last week. And to me, that represents a weakness because I'm not where I need to be physically. And so when Eleazar was in jail, just like gold and fire, and it refines it, I feel like now I'm in a refining stage of like my life. And so I have to get to where I need to be physically, not because I'm going to fight anybody, but when you feel better physically, I think others can see it. It affects your performance and other things that you do in life. And so 319 is where I started, but I'm trying to channel through Eleazar that physical side now, not just the moral side, because the moral side is there. I'm always going to defend people, but I can do it a lot better if physically I'm able to. So 319 is just a representation of that fight. And every week when I come in here, I'm going to give you the number, because through this journey that he has, I'm going to be traveling with him, because I got to just bring that physical piece in tune with the moral piece so that I can really be Eleazar, because that's who I am. That's just who I am. And so with all that rambling, this week is 308.
Nice.
And I'm just going to keep on until I feel comfortable. There isn't a number, but until I know that I can do what I need to do physically, you know, I've got a child.
Happy, right?
Yep, until I'm happy. My girl needs me to be there when she walks down the aisle. If she chooses to go that way, you know, she might not. She may. But whatever. Like I'm encompassing Eleazar because he is who I am. The only part that I'm missing is that physical part. And that physical part is important to me to make the picture complete. And so this is important for me to be here because he's helping me along the way through this journey. I know it's corny. We can start playing now.
Not corny at
But
all.
let's go.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. To Robert,
Robert,
to Demetrius, and to Eleazar.
there you go.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I do have
And
to admit,
I think
see
that's
Eleazar
beautiful.
Coming out like jacked from his cell.
Like,
And he
what
like
can I
never
do in
takes off
here
his
today?
armor, right? So he could be a little chunky on there. You don't know.
No, he came out without his armor because we left his armor back in
Oh,
fucking
that's right.
Carradine.
Yeah. You know he was like pumping
He was
iron
looking like-
in
yeah.
prison.
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't let out of that little room. All he had was that little room that you
Yeah.
you had him in.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing so
Yeah.
much. I'm feel privileged to be on this journey with you. I think it's beautiful that you feel that you can relate so much to this fantasy character that you made at my table, so much that it's helping you in your real world life to envision some of your own dreams. I that is the biggest flattery I could feel as excuse me. That's the biggest flattery that I could ever get as a DM. I
mean, you guys have helped me like along the way. Like, you welcomed me back. You knew I was dealing with, I'm saying, the cancer and after effects. And my man over here, he checked up on me. You know, like it's just. I know I'm not the only one who uses D&D for this to help them get to where they need to be mentally.
absolutely a cathartic and therapeutic process.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
people do that, and I think it's beautiful. It's what makes it one of the most
Well,
the greatest
there's-
games in the world, because it's not just a game.
Every week I'm seeing something on my Facebook groups because I belong to several D&D Facebook groups. And every week I'm seeing something about somebody who's posting this. I found relief in therapy through this. I'm now trying to figure out how to do therapy for other people. It's a great thing, and it's one of the things about this that is really fun to deal with and do.
Yeah.
So for everyone out there, if you ever find yourself in a place that you feel that D&D helps you in a way, grab onto that. Use that. We are the people that do this stuff are a bunch of nerds and geeks, and we are a very, very, very supportive community, and we're very happy to do that. I believe there's what is it called? The one that the convention
Yeah.
ones
Yes.
that raise, what is it called?
They just had it at the end of July. I'm trying to remember right now, but it's the one for suicide awareness and everything. Like
Yes,
that's
there's
what
that
we're
one,
talking
and,
about,
and it's the one that
It's
the
Gamers Giving or something.
Gamers
right?
Giving, yes.
Yeah.
So there's Colorado has this thing called Gamers Giving, where like they raise a bunch of money to help with other nerds and geeks in the community. If you guys ever wanted to help out with that, please go check them out. Donate if you can. If you can't, that's totally fine. Just keep doing what you're doing.
I mean,
I
nice
feel
things.
an immense amount of love and honor that you are able to help your own personal growth through a fictional character that you made at my table. I'm at a loss for words. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, but everybody here has like played a role. Like everyone has helped me in some way, assisted me.
Oh.
Like everybody has.
Yeah.
You know, and so
sure, yeah.
it's so crazy because like the more I play, the more I connect, and the more I'm like, okay, this piece is a given. I'm always gonna defend people who can't defend themselves. It's just that's just how I roll. But I need to get that physical side also. Not to say I'm going to punch any. You know, it's not about the. Now I will if I have to. But that's not what I'm saying. But you know,
you're not
when
doing
you're
it so you
feeling
can
better.
go out there and just punch dudes through walls.
Right.
What you're saying. Yeah, I
feel
get that.
privileged to be in all of your presences is what I would say. Is like, I'm so glad that you guys keep coming back, that you guys want to do this with us. I'm so glad that we're all helping each other through everything. Kenton has his 3 daughters that he's constantly leaving early or late or putting out tons of fires, which is totally fine. And we
Sometimes
totally
late.
understand.
I did like that.
Always
during
late. He always leaves early.
I did like that during his introduction the last time was. My wife just set our smoker on fire.
Yeah. You're showing a picture around your backyard on fire. I was like,
We're just like, go deal with that.
Literal. Yeah. Okay.
Gotta go.
One of the best things though is every 2 weeks I get to hang out with 6 of my good friends, play games, talk, deal with other things, even from outside of here if I need to. It's one of the nice things about this.
Yeah.
And I know I don't communicate too well on the Discord piece.
Don't worry about it.
I'm so
Way better
freaking
now.
busy,
You
bro.
used to,
I'm like,
at
it's
the very beginning,
because I'm
you
trying to
never
figure out
messaged.
about
Now you're doing good.
the whole
Yeah.
job. I'm like,
when it comes right down to it, if I really, well, here's the deal. If I need a response from you right away, is it okay
you'll
if I
just
call
me
you?
direct.
Is it okay?
Yeah,
if I,
that's what you do though. You're
Yeah.
like, did you see?
so sometimes I don't want to bug you because I know how
Oh,
busy
no,
you are.
bug me.
All right, well then I'll just fucking call you. Then.
Yeah,
I'll just call you.
Call me directly. And
I'll
I'm
just
like,
be
oh,
like,
it's TJ. I better pick up.
Demetrius, you good? Go like, yeah. Look at the
Remember,
Discord
you
chat.
ever need
something-
an immediate response from me, that's the better way to get a hold of me.
Yeah.
Because if you're talking to me on Discord, that tells me you're ready. You're fine with me talking to you when I have the chance to
So
talk
here's
with
the
you.
rationale with that, is that I'm dealing with not just this campaign, but 2 other campaigns, right?
Right.
So if I can put one message out there that reaches all like 20 of you or however many of you there are, that saves me an immense amount of time. So and I understand that some of you don't always do that, and I totally get it. And it's just like all I can ask is that you have the notification on for your phone for Discord messages, and then we're fine. But every single one of you do whatever you can. And I am honored and blessed to have the time and energy that I get from you guys as it stands. I couldn't be.
I mean, that's why I got us those shirts for our 1-year anniversary.
Yeah,
because
those were cool.
They're pretty
like
nifty.
most groups fizzle out in 3 months. You took a random group of people outside of Noel and created a full D&D group that lasted a year, dude.
Yeah.
It's almost 2 or a year and a half at this point.
Yeah.
We're going for 5. I'm telling you, we're going for it.
Do it.
Noel and I are looking for a house, but we're not going to move that far. We're going to stay in the greater Denver area, so we'll see what happens.
Don't move
But
into
yeah.
my area. Those houses are super expensive.
Everything's super.
Everything,
Everything's super expensive
everything
right
is
now.
super expensive.
Yo,
anymore.
I'm telling you, Ken, if your wife knows anything, I'm not
Right.
kidding. I haven't heard anything from her, but please tell her to get in contact with us. I know she surfs it all day long.
I mean, she only sent me one while we were sitting.
Only,
just
only
like-
one.
She's like, "Hey, our neighbor's house looks really good."
Ken, just make a group chat with you, Noelle, I, and Nicole, and just have her put all of her suggestions in that group chat
Is she in
so we
real
could look
estate
at it
or-
as well.
She was going to,
Uh-huh.
and then her mom got a brain tumor, and so then we
Gotcha.
didn't have
Oh.
childcare.
Jeez. Glioblastoma?
How'd you know?
Because I know cancer. Because
No,
my
it's
works
not.
in
No,
cancer.
which one? No, which one was it? No, it was a craniopharyngioma,
What about Noel and cancer?
which was
Noelle works in cancer.
and
Yeah.
so
Oncology.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
was super
So you
huge.
know the stuff I've been through then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
okay. Wow. Holy smokies.
It goes without saying, but when we spoke, when you were talking about coming back, you gave me this very long and deep apology, of which was entirely unnecessary. You had nothing to apologize for especially with what you were going through, for doing your egress from the campaign at that time. You had nothing to apologize for. You were more than welcome back. We always gave you our hope and love, and the fact that you're still here,
Right.
And you're
Like I said,
sits his heck at the
that's
table.
the whole
I mean,
reason we did everything we could
I-
to save Eleazar.
I mean, come on.
I mean, brought you back from the dead. You're good.
Right.
Even
And I
when we knew
appreciate
that you
that.
weren't coming back, we were still like, no, we have to keep Eleazar alive.
And I appreciate
He wants to
imitates
come
art.
back.
Right. And I appreciate that, but just know that's just how I am. And if I make a dedication to people, I'm one that takes very seriously my word, because we can pass away tomorrow,
Yeah.
and I want you to. He was a good guy, so my word's important to me. And so when I stepped away, I just felt bad because it was unexpected, and I still had that.
Entirely understand.
Well, I mean, it was
But that-
unexpected, but you told us, what was it, like a week or two after we'd started? Maybe 2 sessions in?
Yeah.
So,
But still,
there's
you know what I'm saying?
totally, No, I mean,
Yeah.
No, it played.
We were
well.
just super happy to have you back.
it was fairly
I'm
early
happy to
on.
be back.
Yeah.
Like,
And
But
yeah,
no, it was...
and I'm looking forward to like December, January, when I'm getting closer to where I want to be. Yeah, so I'm just manifesting.
I'm excited to hang out
Good things.
Yeah,
outside
yep,
of D&D
Yeah.
with you guys. You know,
Yeah.
I know everyone's super busy, and this is like
Well, I mean,
your spare time that
We
you
do
get.
need to post some of those pictures from the Ren Fair. I know I wasn't
Yes.
in costume,
Didn't you
but...
post
I only got like 3 or 4 of those pictures.
He only posted
On
them-
Discord?
He posted them to our private Discord.
Oh, I got
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Yeah.
They're on the schedule, on my social media schedule, for Throwback Thursdays. It's on the way. I think it's like 2 months away when they get posted, but they are on the schedule. I didn't get a whole lot of pictures. If any of you else have pictures from then, if you have pictures,
I didn't take any. There was
I
only
was-
one kid that asked for my picture at the very end, but it
I
made
was
my day.
drinking...
Like
Isn't
I-
this the best part
I
though?
took a lot of the pictures for you, but
Yeah.
no, I did not. I did not have any of the pictures because
Yeah.
it was always the other person's phone.
Noelle has a bunch of those pictures.
Probably me.
Yeah, Noelle has a bunch of those pictures.
Pictures, and I won't share them.
I just remember being like, "Oh, can I get a picture with both of you?"
Yeah.
Sure, I'll take it for you. Come on.
I got the video of because a couple like professional photographers were there, and they took video of us, like the satyr and the nymph and like a witch and a barbarian like dancing, and they were all dancing. So I got a couple videos and a couple pictures from other, because some of the photographers there. Guys, if you've never been to a Ren Fair, go to a Ren Fair. It's really cool. Dress up. It's a lot
even
of
if you
fun.
don't dress up, it's still fun. Don't let him lie to you like that.
dress up.
Don't.
It's fun because it's people like, well, like, hey, cool. There's like this sense of camaraderie, very nerddom. You got
Your
a
satyr-
legit, actual, very sharp sword when you were
Yeah.
there, didn't you?
Well, I mean, like, I already knew when I was going there. Okay, so I planned the costume around the sword I knew I was going to buy.
Yeah, that's the cool shit. Yeah.
I mean, I did not buy a sharp sword, which is perfectly fine with me. I'm not expecting to chop anybody up like Cody was that day. Literally, I kept
Zombies,
going,
you never
why do you
know."
need a sharp sword? Because something might happen. Oh, so your sharp sword's going to actually do something?
Zombies are always a possibility.
Zombies are,
Zombies are always a possibility.
I
I hate to cut this short, but we do have to get into the
No,
game
we
at some
do,
point.
like-
Yeah, because it has been about an hour.
We actually got a message from Cam about that, and I was trying to
Yeah.
signal, but at the same time, we were having a good, deep conversation.
Yeah.
So thank you for being part of the Dice
Thank
of
you.
Ages therapy hour.
Thank you for just being part of us, part of the community. I know it's stupid, but do the liking thing, do the subscribing thing. Let us know that you like this place. Check out our Patreon. Get in touch with. We do a bunch of other content. Get in touch with us. Help us help you, so that you can help us make more content. Another thing is that the map of the Shalian Cradle is now up on our wall. I will be sharing that map to the Discord server if you're not already part of the Discord
I
server.
think you already did.
If I did, then it's already on there.
pretty
If I
sure you
didn't,
posted
I will double check. But But if you want to be part of our cool Discord community, Discord server community, please go check out our Patreon and join there. All tiers of the Patreon get access to the Discord community.
Well,
Great,
we've-
it's already in there.
When we found it in the other campaign.
Because we are now starting we are in the works of starting or at least recording and broadcasting a third campaign, which may be for patrons only because of how much work it is. But we will keep you posted on that as much as possible. So the Shailene Cradle is the southwestern region of the continent of CrestVahllen. I am in the process of making, which is a long process, don't expect it anytime soon, of a far more high definition and detailed world or continental map of the continent of CrestVahllen, including a bunch of these other more regional specs in there. Is Ken okay?
I would assume so.
Okay. Great.
He's
Well,
a grown man, so
Yeah.
if he doesn't say anything to us, we assume he's fine.
I think his backyard is on fire again.
Watch, his wife was watching, and we're in trouble because he mentioned it last time.
So one last to this group, all of us together, to hanging around, being nerds, having a good time, and bettering ourselves, and to Robert.
Yeah.
Here, here. All right. Without further ado, then, I suppose we should get into the recap of the previous episode. What do you guys say?
I mean,
Maybe.
yeah, like an hour into the stream, sure.
It was all good.
What was
It
said
hasn't actually
needed
been
to
an
be
hour.
said.
It did.
Because of me. It's only really been about a half hour.
But we
Yeah.
started
Well,
the
then-
live stream before you got here.
Yeah, but then you add in me, that probably adds up to about an hour. So
All of it was
It was needed.
good.
It was good. It was not
good,
a bad
yes.
conversation.
No,
I'm
not
not
at
saying
all.
that in the least.
I wouldn't have done it any other way.
No. But now it's
okay.
time to play some D&D.
Great. It's time to play some D&D. Let's do some recaps here then. I timed myself beforehand this time, guys, so I'm prepared. But I also got donut on my screen. So I just cleaned it.
Balance.
Yes, wonderful. Okay, let me pull this
You
up
always
here.
think you're
And
winning
let's
when you're
change
not,
our music here. All right. So, taking in the scene of grief before them, the Argent Flame discuss the potential riot in Steercrag with Logran Stoneworm. Log reveals his form, evoking a surprisingly underwhelming response, but building a rapport of trust in the process. Logran can't officially interfere in clan politics without repercussions, so the party offer to help stop the riot in exchange for a boon of sorts. Cole cleans up Logran with magic, and Zemdak stabs the Lord with a syringe, alleviating some of his fear. The mention of Ermgrim's description seems to subtly pique the Lord's interest, however well he hides it. Logran agrees to send a patrol of regulars nearby the party's location to act as quick responders, and the gang learn of his business in Karadim. On the way out, Argus notices the Lord surreptitiously order a patrol to track down a specific Duragar. As the party search for where the gathering is to take place, Trisheni checks in on Ermgrim with Shakar, enabling the quick discernment of a gathering crowd. Along the way there, Eleazar clocks a few noteworthy locations that they may visit later. Arriving at an eastern venue, Cole notices some sneaky individuals that appear to be throwing off the troops' investigation. Cole tries to warn the orator, however you want to pronounce it, but he doesn't seem very worried. Argus uses spellcraft to locate poison and gets a few pings. The group splits up among the crowd to track down individuals carrying hidden jars with poisoned bugs inside. One by one, they expertly remove the threats, while the rowdiness of the crowd increases at the behest of the Vogel Crier. Cole and Argus work together to create the illusion of a massive purple worm that disrupts the rally, causing panic and stampeding throngs. Bedlam ensues as the crowd panics, believing the threat is real, along with a few of the party members. Some of the gang are pushed, surfed, and trampled, while Argus dips onto the stage, confronting a dwarf with a jar. The sneaky dwarf opens the jar, releasing a swarm of insects that are summarily roasted in holy flame. Boots and Pernua help evacuate the hysteric civilians, while Eleazar teleports onto the stage. met by a combat-thirsty, harness-wearing Clan Vogel dwarf. As the mayhem begins to taper off, a blue plasma blade exits the chest of the Vogel dwarf, revealing Ermgrim from behind. The following tense moment leaks the knowledge that the Vogel dwarf may be responsible for Ergrim's sister's death. Ergrim is barely convinced to depart invisible, and claims that the life is his by right. The Argent Flame depart soon after, leaving the harnessed dwarf to stew among their wounds. After some healing, the party travel to the Canny Canary, a general store run by an old woman tinker. The half-elven woman makes some deals with the group and schedules a master class on prosthetics, tinkering, for the next day. The gang then head over to the Cath War College, pay their admission, and begin their search for knowledge. Now, welcome back to CrestVahllen.
The first time in a while we've got to dance after he's done.
Don't die. Don't die now. All right. So, you guys are at the Cath War College. You guys have paid your admission, and I believe we left off with some of you kind of splitting up and going your separate ways for certain areas of the archive, searching for certain information. Let's make this easy for me, and let's just go around the table clockwise like we usually do. And you know what? Let's mix it up. Let's do you first. Let's go counterclockwise this because Adam goes first all the time. Log, what is it specifically that you're looking for? I believe you said something about some dark, weird shit.
Yeah.
And they
They point me to a dark corner.
The corner that you can't see into.
that you can't see into because it's always dark.
Yeah.
So for log candy.
That's got a door to into.
Right.
Yeah,
I
like-
can see into it.
Yeah, so it's just like like it's through the stack. You know, when you've been in a library and there's that corner of the library where the couples like to make out, where like you just can't unless you're like 5 feet from that corner of the library between the stacks. You just have no line of sight. That's kind of where it is. It's kept at this like dark, shadowy place, and you must never go there, my son. And like there is a candle, or not a candle, but a glowing crystal of what looks like some almost depleted terrazine piece encased in something. It appears to be some sort of like magical luminous object, because no fire in the library. But the light doesn't seem to shed to that corner. It sheds to. So you head over in that direction with your not your ghostly gaze, but your devil's sight, I believe is what it's called. You can see totally fine. Whatever this is appears to be some sort of like ambient, like a circumstantial darkness.
So I'm going to go over there, and I'll have Twig and Moonchild, and she still looks like Missy Powell right now. And I'll just kind of have them sort of like just outside the darkness because they can't see in there because they don't have.
They
the outside.
cannot. Yes.
So I'm just going to have them kind of hang out just in front of it. I'll like just Twig up on the ceiling or something like that, just chill out.
Sure.
And just kind of watch, just be lookouts, basically.
Okay, cool, yeah. I mean, because Moonchild has a very, very good sense of smell and a good sense of hearing, even if they're blind, they're still a pretty good lookout. So,
Well, so yeah, they're not going all the way into the darkness. They'll go right outside of it. And,
or like, I mean, but I mean that is that they'll always know where you are,
Right, yeah.
because they can smell you and they can hear you. Twig is just kind of like, whatever, man. He's up on the ceiling, just like a dark spider in a dark spot, just right outside the darkness.
Yep.
You got it. You are looking for something specific, I believe, on the idol and old elder stuff.
Well, so first I'm going to do comprehend languages.
You got
get
it.
that going
Cool.
ritualistically.
You're going to take 10 minutes to do the ritual, correct?
Well, because that's the only way I can do it.
That's correct. Okay, yeah. How do you do your ritual?
Well, I still have that little note that Trisheni wrote me. That the little like I can do it, or the you can do it log. And so I
Your motivational poster.
So I
Hang in
pull,
there.
I pull it out and I start sounding it out like I did before for 10 minutes. until it
Yeah,
makes
so
sense.
you're like reading at like a first grade level this arcane language, and you're like, is land of, and yeah, sure, you're reading it out, you're sounding it out for yourself. You do that in 10 minutes. I love how Log's rituals are him struggling to read. That's or like a kindergartner struggling to read. I love it. Great, yeah, you do so, and then like once you're done with like the arcanic paragraph or whatever it is, the spell like procs and like hits your eyes, and then you look back at the paragraph and you're like, that's so easy to understand now, because you have comprehend languages up.
So I'm going to look for anything on the idol, anything that is like written in the Eldritch script that was on the idol.
Ah, okay, cool.
And also anything that looks like it maybe would have to do with my patron. Anything that looks like it describes...
Correct. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you still don't know the name of your patron, correct?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
So anything that sounds like it would be describing it.
Right, so like the fleshy and the eyes, and like it being like an entire terrain of like a sea of flesh and eyes.
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool. Very, very interesting.
And I want to
Yes.
see if I can identify where this darkness is coming from.
Okay, cool. Okay, which of these things? So, the searching for knowledge is going to be investigation checks. The trying to find out the origin of this darkness, this circumstantial, like ambient magical darkness, is going to be an Arcana check.
Okay.
Which one would you like to do first?
I'll do the investigation stuff first.
Okay, cool.
It's going to be a 19 total.
19. Very well done. What's your investigation modifier?
+3 because I'm proficient in it apparently.
Oh. Great. Okay, so 19. Okay, so there's a couple things you find. You do find, oddly enough, you knock two birds out with one stone, because you do find what looks like a very old tome that's not part. So you know how the bindings of books usually face out from the bookcase? You are looking and looking and looking, and you kind of like touching the books, and you touch a couple books, and some of the books like slide in because they're not fully the size of the shelf, but then there's a section of them that don't slide in all the way, and so you reach behind the books, and hidden behind these books is what looks like a very dusty tome of bound in what looks like some sort of vellum. And if you're not familiar with vellum, it is some sort of hide that is used as like a leather.
It's a human skin.
It does not
get one of those.
It does not look like livestock vellum. It
Sentient creature.
if you want to roll check later on to try to determine what type of vellum it is, you can. Let me know if that's something that is a priority to you.
Not yet.
Okay, not yet. What you do notice is that this vellum looks to be stretched and not and a couple stitches, kind of like a Frankenstein vellum, and it doesn't have any writing on the binding. But you do notice, like, imagine the vellum as those kind of like book covers that kind of fold in on the first top, and then they have like the little summary of like about the author, that kind of thing. Except in there, so the vellum
Dust
wraps
jacket.
around like a dust jacket. Thank you, a dust jacket, but it's a vellum dust jacket. But you open the first cover, the dust jacket is like latched into the actual cohesiveness and the constituent material of the book itself, like it's like gum, like the roots of teeth growing into something. That's what it kind of looks like. It's like it's fully like flesh roots into the actual book material.
Backlog, it's mimic.
But you open it, and what you do see on like the foldable jacket that would have like some about the author stuff is Eldritch script on there. And you also realize as you pick it up and move it around that this magical darkness moves with it. So this appears to be some sort of circumstantial magic with it, that it is the source of the darkness, and it has some Eldritch script with it. This is some wonky stuff. For you, this is not abnormal because you have that book, and you're used to like pulling fleshy books out of your skin and then reading them and go like, oh, it's just a book. But This is probably the only other fleshy book that you've seen before. You are able to read the script, and it does. Ooh! I actually have to look this up. Let me check my notes real quick. Na 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 na. It says, "Fucking A." You're gonna turn this into something dirty.
Yes.
It's your writing.
Yep.
This was written. This was written over a year ago, and it was not what was intended. And it says on the inner sleeve, "Like a cock with the dawn." You
Dawn?
like a cock with the dawn. DAWN.
Okay.
I'm letting you know your passive insight makes you think you're talking about a rooster. Okay.
You found the really shady section of this.
There's a reason this is the dark corner.
Somebody opened it up. Somebody opened it up who could read Eldritch script. They went up with like, oh, we're gonna hide this smut behind these. But that's what it says there. And then as soon as you read it, it kind of like gets sucked back into the fleshy dust jacket, and it's not there anymore. Like it was aware that you read it.
But if I flip through the rest of the book,
Yeah, you want to flip through the rest of it?
I mean, if that message went away, I just want to see did it go
Sure,
somewhere?
yeah, sure. You flip through it. You find that as you're flipping through it, you're doing it like, reasonably quickly. The text is like running from you, like running from you from one page and like hopping onto the next page. As you flip it, you can see like, the same text. And as you flip it quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker, you see the text literally running away from you from the past page, but you keep up with it to the point where it is Eldritch script, and it does read something. It's very like stream of consciousness type of like. It talks about the wind of breath in a sea of viscera, and then it kind of like flips itself almost as the text itself has its own consciousness, and it's like running away from you. But given enough time, if you like, tell me what you want to do with it.
Well, so now knowing some of that, I want to take my book out, not have it feed, but I just want to see if they react to each other.
Okay, so you're gonna tell me exactly like what hand is in which and what's happening here, just because this matters. Because I believe your book comes out of your right hand, your right forearm.
So I'm gonna set the other book down and just kind of put a foot on it.
Sure.
And then I'm going to take out my book and then, hold it firmly and then pick up the other book.
Okay, you got it. You see the book and it is fighting with you, like, to get to this book down there. It is hungry. Go ahead and do me a favor, roll a strength. Just like I'm going to say it's just a contested strength check with your book. Yes, I made stats for a book.
Okay.
Ooh.
It's a book mimic.
It's a magical book, so.
That was strength.
Yeah.
I rolled a nat 1 plus 2, so 3.
It rolled an 18 on the book. So this book plops out of your hand and flops on the floor and begins to eat this book. However, your foot is on top of it. So it's not able to really like get its jaws around it properly in order to like properly devour it, unless it also wants to eat your ankle. Doesn't seem too concerned about it, but it is like it's trying. It's really hard.
So can I just pick the book up and put it back?
Roll another strength check, because it does have a little bit of a mind of its own.
It's not going to roll a 1 twice in a row, right?
1 in 400 chance.
Nat 20 that time.
5 on the die. You got it. So you pick it up and you like shove it back in there. It is fighting to get out. This is the first time you've ever seen it like fight to get out from your wrist before. It has like, it's like got the taste now, and it like really wants this thing. The other book doesn't seem to react at all. almost it just seems stoic and in stasis. You fully want to shove it back in?
Yeah, for the moment. Yeah.
Okay, you shove it back in.
So I'm going to pick up the other book. How much time has all this taken so far?
You took 10 minutes to do the ritual. I'd say it's a couple minutes. Couple minutes for this extra thing. I mean, because you were like, perusing the stacks for about like 10, 20 minutes, I'd say, somewhere around like 15 minutes. And then you found this spot, you pulled out the book, it took you an extra like another 2 minutes to do this whole thing. And now you're just like, okay, what now?
All right, I'm going to... how big is the darkness in this area?
I would say no bigger than like 15 feet in each direction. Granted, it's a corner, so it's only like really in the southern and western direction, really. You do hear Moonchild whimper like.
Check something real quick. I think I know what I want to do, but I just got to check one detail.
While he's checking that detail, Trisheni, where did you want to head? Or did you want to start working on transcribing those spells?
So I see Log starting to read from his piece of paper, and I'm like, duh.
No, you don't, because he's in the darkness.
Oh.
But you see him just go off into this dark corner and disappear.
Then I'll just say that I was inspired to also ritually cast Comprehend Languages.
Sure, you do so.
So I do that, and then...
And yeah, you take 10 minutes to do that.
Argue with Halami for a bit.
You got it.
Okay, so I paid for a day pass, and since this didn't take all that long, can I keep kind of just looking around in the area just for other...
Yeah. That was just the one. That was like the first thing that piqued your interest. The 19, you noticed other things. I just didn't get to it because you were like, that's the first thing. You were like, oh, and you immediately went for that, right? And so if you want to put that on hold and see what else that you found, would you want to do that, or do you want to? Okay,
yes,
cool.
yes. I'm going to so I've got
Sure.
pulling that book to the side for the moment, and then just keep.
Right. So you were looking for things about the fetish, anything in the Eldritch language, and anything about your patron.
Right.
Correct.
And if I can also throw in just like anything that looks magical, just like magical spells, magical,
Sure. Right. Here's what I'm going to say. You don't get the sense with that investigation. You don't get the sense that any of these books are magical, except for the one that you found, or at least inherently magical. If you're looking for like spell scrolls and stuff like that, that's in a different department. That's a different department of which they kind of made clear when you were coming in. If they didn't make clear, I'm making clear now. What you do find with the 19 is it's not exactly what you're looking for, but it's a little adjacent. You find mentions of the Aetherveld, which is the massive. It's not called just the Aetherveld. It's called. Oh, I wish I brought this up before. The Aetherveld macrolith. The Aetherveld macrolith is the big double tetrahedral like diamond thing that is suspended by adamantine chains that you've heard about, that Gizmo and Argus have told you about before, that sits in the center of Thulmore Bed, kind of suspended there. And what you find a book that kind of talks about this. I'm just gonna we give you brass tacks, cliff notes of what it is as you kind of flip through it. And the reason why it seems familiar to you is because it's written in the language of the arcane, which is one of the reasons why you pick it up, because it's written in this kind of draconic dialect. And what with comprehend languages, you understand it. So you grab it, and you're like, okay, this is interesting. One of the passages as you're flipping through this, and this takes you a good hour as you're flipping through it, is some sort of mention of a connection between the Aetherveld and the what's called the consuming crystal, which to you immediately passive insight. Oh, it's got to be Terrazine, right? It's got to be Terrazine. What the other thing that just registers as you like, ooh, that's interesting, is that there's some association with the Aetherveld, the consuming crystal, and some sort of technology that transports physicality over long distances. Like some sort of teleportation technology that doesn't have to do necessarily with the magics of an individual. It's almost like a footnote in like a subchapter of a heading that talks about, oh, well, yeah, like the Aetherveld also came from this, which has to do with this. And you're like, whoa, wait. And just by chance, you kind of flip through. And the only reason why it jogs your memory, you're like, okay, this sounds a lot like what a well wall is. Like, and so it's like, again, it's written in this old archaic language that's kind of like mixed with an old dialect of Dwarvish. It's a really, really old tome. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to you, even with comprehend languages, just because the syntax is off. But what you discern is that there's some connection between the Aetherweld macrolith, the well walls, and Terrazine. There's some sort of connection there. Oh, and there's some knowledge that is so old that someone knew about Terrazine, knew about the Aetherveld macros, and knew about the well walls way back in the day.
So it sounds like it's all above my head, but I know that certain members of my party would be very interested in this.
Yes. One of the reasons why
this is boring stuff.
Like, there's another thing, because you rolled so high.
There's no new spell in here.
Because you rolled so high, there's also another thing that you ran as you like started to flip through it and try to and paying more attention to the footnotes and like checking the index and stuff like that. What you do notice is that there is some mention of things not of this world from a plane that has been yet to be explored, from a plane of unexplainable. They don't even use the word horrors. They kind of like leave it blank as just to be unexplainable entities. That has to do with the well walls as well, which kind of points you in the same direction as like, okay, well, that sounds a lot like what's going on with me too. But we also know that the well walls kind of like travel in this like well wall continuum tunnel, and they go to a bunch of other places, but there's also dimensional creatures attached. So it seems like even the person that wrote this wasn't entirely sure of all the variables involved.
You said that took like around an hour, roughly.
Yeah, because you sit down with this book. You like take the other book and you grab a chair. You sit at one of like the barrels or like a reading station off in this like corner, and you keep the other book under your foot, and you start parsing through this book and poring over it. And that's the information that you grab for that hour. We're gonna move on to somebody else unless you have.
Well, so there's one
Sure.
thing I'm gonna do. So I'm going to just kind of put that book to the big one you were saying to the side.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to grab the other book, the darkness book, from under my foot. I'm going to cast darkness just on the spot I'm at. Then I'm going to take this new book and put it in my backpack, because now it's going to contain all that darkness. and it won't be shiny out because it's covered. But there's still darkness there.
Okay, so you cast darkness on the space, like on yourself, or like on the space that you're in, or like one of the floorboards.
So on myself, but basically like just
because you can't do it on yourself.
I could do it on myself.
I understand. You're doing a bait and switch.
Yeah,
I understand. You got it. Yeah, you're doing like a little shell game. I understand what you're saying. You're making it look like the darkness is still there, but stealing the book.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna give you. I mean, nobody can see you. So I don't think I can make you roll for this. I think you just straight up steal the book. However, since it's covered by something, the darkness does no longer exude. It wasn't covered when it was behind things; it was still a way for the darkness to creep out. But you are attempting to completely encase it in your bag, correct? You do so. You effectively steal this book. You just have to get away with it. Great.
Well, so then I'm going to and exit the darkness.
Did you want to roll that Arcana check or no?
Oh, right. Sorry about that. And that was going to be for...
I'm gonna save you some time. The Arcana check, that what you would have gotten from Arcana check is this book and some of this other information anyway. So you, yeah. So you're,
yeah, so I'm going to exit the darkness. I'm going to look for wherever Trisheni is. I'm going to bring her this other book.
cool. And that happens about an hour later. So we'll get to that. So like near the end of what it is that you're doing, you show up with this book about
this
the Aetherveld macro.
Boring book. Sciencey stuff.
Yeah, a lot of big words in here, but I know. I think you might find this interesting. I'm going to go back to the Wailing Wall.
Okay.
So I'll meet you guys there.
All right. Oh,
Yeah,
and I
because everybody's kind of split up, so we're going to do some time stuff. I think by the time you leave, everybody else is going to be leaving anyway. So what we'll see.
I've got 10 minutes for darkness to...
I understand. Yes, I understand. So you got a timer to get out there before the darkness just stops being in this dark corner.
Right.
People will be like, huh. Okay, you got it. Great. Trisheni, you cast your comprehend languages.
Got rid of the curse log.
yeah.
Right, I cured it.
You
Wait a
kissed the
minute.
beautiful frog in the corner.
I mean, I have a nice conversation in the corner.
Yeah, it's you prop Lemmy up on one of the reading tables, and you're like, or like you clear off the space. So you know how some of the stacks, the bookends push the books up because there are not enough books to actually fill the whole bookcase. So you put kind of just prop Lammy in there, and you're like whispering to the book stacks, and every once in a while somebody looks at you like,
Don't worry about it. Just stop. Anyway, like I'm saying, just I need to be able to understand everything that's in this shell. Just do it. Just do it. Come on. You know. Anyway, so that happens.
Lemmy just like coincidentally just falls to the ground, and then your eyes go, or not falls, but just like slumps and falls over,
Like,
and your eyes go,
Whatever.
well, like Lemmy, and you're just,
Yeah.
thank you so much. It's like the universe giving up
Exactly.
to your will. You got it. So you have comprehend languages up.
Cool. So knowing that this is a war college specifically,
You said you were headed to a certain section, correct?
I think last time I was going to help somebody too. I think I was going to help you, but
That was not me. I decided to come in after all of you had decided that
Okay.
you were going to grab stuff.
all right. So I think
I can double check.
I knew you were looking for Druga knockback stuff.
Yeah.
yeah. There are two things that I want to do.
Sure.
Look for, and then there's a third thing that I want to just very short that I'll be doing right before leaving.
Sure.
So the first thing is just looking at more information about actual blade singing, because the concept that I've actually learned how to do what I can do just by picking something up and inherently knowing it is very odd to me, being a wizard and not studying it. So like understanding more of the techniques, and especially with Shade being like, you're not a real blade singer. I'm like, okay,
Shade.
well, let me learn some
Cool.
techniques. So
and given that and a bunch of the other information, you understand that this is an old elven art.
yeah.
So you might want to head to. Granted, this is a war college based in the Razor Fang Agreement. So your
Enemy fighting styles.
Yeah.
yes,
How do you
that's
defend
pretty
the
much the
enemy?
section you're
Right.
looking for. You're looking for know thy enemy section is really what you're looking for.
Exactly. And I'm
Cool.
I'm hoping that the other section that I'm looking for is going to be right next door with general overall war strategy, because what I'm trying to get at is understanding those tactics and such that the conclave might be using from a longer campaign overall, like trying to basically understand the rules of chess so that I can foresee the
Got it.
the
Old
next like
rules of
20
engagement. You got it.
things coming down the pike.
Brilliant. Okay, so you find yourself eventually. Actually, do me a favor. Roll an investigation check. It depends on whether you can like find the right location.
Dirty 20.
Dirty 20. Okay. Yeah. You ask around. You check the racks and the card catalog or whatever you want to call it, which is not like made out of paper, but it's then like small little tick, 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 like plates of iron. And you head and eventually find your way over to a much older section of where the books aren't tomes. They aren't made of paper. They're made of very thin sheets of iron, like with information like sigiled and punched into it like manually.
Nice.
So that they last for a very, very long time. And they're also kept in an area that is closed off a little bit from the rest of it so that they don't rust. There is, these are, you two are not there at the moment, I don't think, but this is very similar to the Ferris archives back in Thulmore Bed. A lot of the stuff is kept in there on metal. So, go ahead. Okay, so you head over here, and this is, so you can tell that this is much older, because this is like a much older traditional way of keeping records. Now that you're here, which one are you looking? You're looking for enemy fighting styles? Enemy, know thy enemy first?
Yeah, we'll do
Okay,
that
go
first
ahead.
because I think that'll take less time versus trying to understand a
You
bigger
got
picture.
it.
of
Go
war
ahead
strategy.
and roll an investigation check for me.
Okay.
Not great. 14.
14. Okay. You find a couple things that have to do with elven strategies of war during the Great War. When the old elven empire started off in the western coast and did this conquest east, and then were stopped at the Razorfang Agreement, of which you guys are somewhat familiar with. The information that you do find is not exactly what you're looking for. What you do find is some mention as to what the empire was, what the name of the empire was of this elven empire that swept across the nation. It was called the Celendian Empire, after Emperor Celendus, who was the ruler of said empire at the time. Unfortunately, with that, you find it's difficult to find exactly what you're looking for, but there's something. Actually, do me a favor, roll an insight check. If you want to know how to spell Celendian or Celendus, either way, I will get it for you. Give me 1 second.
I like how Log now sees the value of books.
For my book.
Celendian is Sendian, pretty much exactly as it sounds. And Celendus would be Selendus, I believe.
Lendus.
If that's wrong, no, it's IS, not US. Sorry, IS. Celendus. So it's called the Celendian Empire, Emperor Celendus.
Okay.
So that's what you find. You unfortunately, what you're looking for is rather niche and this type of thing. What does come to mind? What'd you get on that insight check?
5.
5. Okay. So the other thing that comes to mind is where you got this sword. You got this in the Trellius Crypt. Or no, right, but it would belonged in the Trellius Crypt, remember? Because it was taken from the Trellius Crypt by the other mercenaries that were kind of like thieves and bandits.
It fit into the
And they had sealed that
lever
crypt
Fit
back
into
too,
one of the
so-
sarcophagi, the reliefs of the top of the sarcophagi.
that opened the secret
Right,
passage.
which means that's where it had belonged.
Yes.
And it was taken from there by one of the local mercenaries and then reclaimed by you and then kept by you. Meaning that there's some sort of elven lineage there that had to do with blade dancing / singing.
Be a good way to hide 'em.
And so that's as much as you can determine.
Yeah, it's
Not a
a-
whole lot you can find out there. But you did find out some stuff about the ancient elven empire. Go ahead and roll that investigation check on... What was the other one?
Larger overall war strategies
Correct.
and campaigns and so that I can basically apply it.
You're looking
to,
for like Roman scrolls in the Library of Alexandria. I understand.
The art of war.
The art of war.
You got it, yeah.
basically. So I
Yeah, I was about to say some Sun Tzu shit. You got it.
yeah, and especially
Or some like I'm thinking of like when
Or the
old
documents
Germanic.
of Alexander or something like
Yeah,
that.
I'm thinking of like when the old Germanic kings found like the Roman scrolls of how they dealt with like wars and how they became an empire, and all that information was lost, and now they're starting to like you're looking for that kind of stuff. You got it.
yeah, and I mean like I'm used to what the Kenrans are like because overall I'm trained in certain things that most wizards aren't. So like there's that. So I understand that, but it's more of like the bigger picture. Like okay,
Not
understanding
nowhere
why
near
they-
as much as your sister.
How did they fight
Right.
war thousands of years ago versus how they fought war?
Are you looking for the way the dwarves, the Razorfang agreement?
I'm looking for just. It's not just the Razorfang agreement. It would be again. My main goal is to try to get insight
You're looking
into
for
how
ancient
the
tactics.
conclave.
I understand.
And if there's any mention of conclave or members of the conclave
you are
that we know.
you are
of.
going into what this war college is about. You're looking for battle tactics, but you're looking for old battle tactics that have to do with sometimes psychological warfare and other types of stuff.
and basically trying
You
to
got
see
it.
patterns.
I'm gonna let you know right now.
This is
is
challenging.
difficult. This is a challenge because this isn't like rudimentary, intermediate, or advanced stuff. This is master level type of information, and not information that is often just allowed for the public to think. So you're pretty much looking for a book that was mislabeled and put in the wrong spot.
Or even like several books and seeing.
Well, not necessarily put in the wrong
patterns,
spot,
right?
but just like one that hasn't been removed and put into a more like secure archive, because that's the kind of info that would be kept in like a headmaster's personal collection of a war college, or it may be considered national secrets or something like that.
Shikar will help me in whatever capacity he can. I know that's not mechanically.
No, I would say because you have such a great bond with him, you can explain it in what you're looking in because of his keen sight and being able to. He's going to keep his eye out. He doesn't have comprehend languages though.
No,
And he speaks what, Sylvan and Common?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
I can
So I'll
double
say
check,
he
but-
can read Sylvan and Common. So he will only be able to notice things in Sylvan and Common.
Okay.
So you can go ahead and roll with advantage, but I'm keeping that in mind.
Okay, which isn't terrible considering
Yeah.
elves. All right. Yeah, nat 20 for a 28 investigation.
You probably
all so
find one of the only iron sheets written in Sylvan in this archive. Seeing it as the language of their like long enemies. It is written in Sylvan because of your comprehend languages. You entirely understand it. It is not just like a sheet. It is like a collection of sheets of very like thin sheets of iron. So much so that they almost like whoop, wee, 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 do that kind of thing. You find it's 5 sheets long, and it is at the moment bolted to the side of the bookcase.
Okay.
You move a couple other of those sheets, cling, cling, clingety, cling, 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 and you see this, and you see it Sylvan, and it talks about. I can't believe I can get this. It talks about.
I appreciate the nat 20 honor. Honoring that.
It talks about a contingency plan for the war. At least that's what piques your interest first. That's what you can see right here, because you can only see like the front cover of it in Sylvan. And it just talks about like contingency plans for the western expansion, or I'm sorry, for the eastern expansion of the Celendian Empire. And it's like, holy fuck, what do we do? It's like the kind of, and that's what piques your interest immediately. It is, however, fully bolted, 4 bolts on each corner of the
Sure.
thing into the bookcase.
Okay.
But it is here.
I take a rubbing of it.
Okay, cool. It will only be the first top sheet then, because there are several sheets kind of bound together. You can't open it because it's bolted. Like all the sheets are bolted together and then into the wood. Does that make sense? Like imagine if a book. I don't have a book on me. Imagine if a book had like bolts in the corner, each of the corners, pressing all the pages together, and then it up against the side of a bookcase.
Gotcha.
So only the first sheet right here is actually visible where it talks about. It's more like introductory, kind of like scientific study type article, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You can take a rubbing of the first page, and it looks like they're like rivets. It's up to you what you want to do.
Not bolts, rivets.
Yeah, like what I mean, bolted the verb, riveted. I mean, like,
Gotcha.
yeah, because I mean, they're not machined bolts, is what I mean. They're like it is riveted in there.
I will. Upon
It looks
seeing
like somebody like took a hot rivet
I was gonna throw her a
and then
wrench so she could
banged it in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. It's not like that. It's not a machined bolt. It looks like it's. Sorry, I misspoke. Bolted. What I meant the colloquial term.
It's like a railroad spike kind of jammed into the thing.
Yeah, a little bit shorter, but yeah, like somebody took a hot rivet and like just forced it in there and stuck it there and hoped it would be like lost.
Well, I'm definitely not selling them my book now if this is how they treat them.
Yeah. Interesting. I contemplate.
Oh, and I have to correct myself. The bookshelves themselves are not made out of wood; they are made out of metal. So the only reason why you spotted this thing, because otherwise it would look like it was just part of the bookshelf itself. You just spotted this like somebody was trying to hide something in plain sight.
Gotcha.
You saw a Sylvan character, and that was way out of place.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were like clink, 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 clink. What? And you tried to grab it, and you're like, and like the whole bookcase kind of shifts a little bit.
I will at that point, after getting the initial rubbing, just like go talk to Zemdek and Argus and be like, "Hey, can you any way we can get this book out and
Cool.
like put it back?"
We'll get to that in a minute because I know you guys want to do stuff too.
Yep.
Okay. Just remind me where we left off because it's kind of gonna all kind of cascade. Yours is gonna happen a little bit before yours. Oh, you guys, splitting the party up into one each. Please help me keep track of this because this is a lot. But yes, Argus, go ahead.
So I want to go look up anything on Kosuth, on the old religion, on any of the practices because I have no clue
I understand.
about.
So you're looking
Especially 'cause
for
Erngrim's
primordial
mentioned,
stuff.
Yeah. He also mentioned his right, and I'm like, I don't know what that is.
Okay, cool. Going into this is going to be very difficult because they are technically like outlawed religions.
Mm-hmm.
They are past deities or primordials that are of which their worship has been.
Did the guy, because I wasn't there, did the guy say that there was any primordial section? Because I would have asked.
The
lady.
the receptionist.
Yes.
If you asked that, they would have pointed you toward some of the stuff on the monkish orders because they are the ones that are most closely related to the primordials, and they still worship not worship, but still speak in the language fluently, and still practice some of the ways of the old gold gods, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
So you go ahead and head in that direction. I would say go ahead and roll. Sure.
Going to enhance ability on my intelligence for investigation.
You got it. You're going through the stacks and you cast a spell on you.
Because I have a +1.
You got it. So go ahead and roll an investigation check for me.
Dirty 20.
Somebody poop. You smell poop?
No. Maybe it's just.
Maybe upstairs. Is Chewie here?
No, they're both outside.
Okay, good. They've been outside for a while? Okay.
Maybe one of them farted? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's just doggy poots. Okay, what'd you get?
No, I have a +1, so dirty 20.
Dirty 20. Okay, not bad. Pretty damn good.
Yeah, because you're not fucking trained in it.
And I have advantage.
You are aware, with the way that your mother talked to you about how Kosuth and the primordials work and how their worship is kind of like told you to keep it on the DL, that information that would be kept in an archive would most likely have been scoured or removed at a certain point. So what you're mostly looking for is probably remnants or elisions or references to something greater, and a little bit like you're looking in books that would reference it, not an actual book of it, because you'd be hard pressed to find something like that here. However, being as that you're looking into a section that is about the monkish orders, and the continent of CrestVahllen, or the nations of CrestVahllen themselves, have a high amount of respect for the monkish orders, it's kind of a no-fly zone for politics interfering. So you get lucky. You get lucky and you find something that is similar to the books that Willow once explained about in her archives within like the temple of the Order of the Open Hoof. And how, like, you know, there were small stone things. And so you find one that's made out of stone. It's very, very, very old stone. It's quite brittle. And you find this book, and the only reason why this sticks out to you is you're like, oh, this sounds a lot like when Willow was, like, explaining what she came from. And, like, it's not like the tome that she had that you guys had made a copy of, I believe, correct? At some point, you guys had made a partial copy of.
Mm-hmm.
It's the part we could
Several
read.
of us heard what was going on with that.
Right.
Just the part we could get.
Right. As we were
that were like talking about hags and other stuff like that,
and jumping into volcanoes and
like
that.
you know, shamanistic stuff and all that kind of stuff. It's so the only reason, like, because that idea is in your mind right now, and your eye just kind of like bing. This is old stone. This makes sense. It's in a primordial language. Do you speak primordial? So you understand the primordial language. You pull it out and you start looking at it. This appears to be talking about, unfortunately, not Kosuth, but of something called Grumbar. I'm going to make sure I spell this right. Just give me one moment.
We heard of Grumbar. Of the Greyhound.
This is talking about Grumbar, and by the constituent materials of this book and the context as you're reading through it, this appears to be some sort of earthen primordial. Grumbar.
Because it's talking about earth and primordial, is it mentioned Pita, which is father with the earth, or is it just...
You see that
I can let you finish.
as you're flipping through it, and this takes a while because you have to be very, 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 very careful with these pages. You find a nice spot to do it, and you because you rolled so high in your investigation check, it kind of like counts for how careful you are with the book and with this brittle material, because it's very, very old stone. You are able to determine, there's almost like Grumbar is a little synonymous with Pita, but also at the same time, not so at all. Almost like it was like a relative or a parent, if that makes sense. Like a kin, but like more of a parent, where we're like Pita was like the father, right? And Atira is the mother, right, of which you figured out. And so it's almost like those two entities were the father and mother, what you're kind of getting via the context as you're reading through this. And of course, it's written in a primordial, old primordial dialect. If this was any more contemporary, it would be written in a Terran, which you don't understand. So this is like an old dialect of primordial that you still understand because it has the same amount of roots, but you feel more of the Terran influence rather than the Ignan influence, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So you read about Grumbar, and it tells about how Grumbar once summoned, or once, like, as part of himself, removed a large portion of himself, of the world, of his body, of the earth, to create a massive, truly titanic creature that would slither under the crust of the planet. And it talks about, it looks like there's several pages missing, several tablets missing, because it jumps to then the geographical features of the Razorfang mountain range, and it talks a little bit more like litigiously about the separation of powers of the temples, as there was a northern temple of the body, a like kind of like more central temple of the soul and a southern temple of the mind. And it's more clinically. It talks more clinically after that kind of separation. And you, given your conversations with Willow and with Zemdek, kind of get the idea that the central temple of the soul is probably the Wa'ana'ote temple. So much lore I'm dropping. When each of you go off and do your own thing and roll insanely well for like finding lore, I have to drop so much shit.
Do we have? Was there any real description of the Slytherin creature? Like, did it sound like?
It sounded like, of course, like, you know, some stuff is lost in translation because it's an old dialect of Primordial that has a lot of Terran influences. So a bunch of stuff is probably lost that you don't entirely pick up on perfectly well. And it appears to be like written almost poetically, where it's kind of like, think of like Shakespearean poetically, where there's a lot to like be inferred emotionally and like in between the thank you, Bard, in between the lines and stuff like that. So it's hard to get like a real literal translation of what they mean. So as far as exactly what it is they're describing, it's pretty vague.
So it doesn't sound like the worm or anything. Okay.
Matrix guy.
Yeah, there's the word I was looking for.
I will say, do me a favor. Because you rolled a dirty 20, go ahead and roll an insight check.
13.
13. You're not getting the feeling this is the Matrix guy.
Okay.
There's something...
Dogs.
You're not getting the feeling that this is the Matrix guy. You're getting...
Something different.
The Matrix guy feels too small.
Too small. Okay. And did it sound like it's more in the Underdark or just...
It's so it doesn't,
because they're talking about the world. Does
Sure.
it sound like it's more this plane versus the Underdark?
That's the thing. It doesn't speak of planes the way that we that you contemporarily understand them. It is a far more ancient text. It talks more about the instances of the spirituality coalescing and being at unity with the planet or the world itself, rather than actually subdividing it into planes.
Okay.
If that makes sense. It's pretty vague, but the thing that like really popped out to you is like, okay, now I know the name of another primordial. One, some sort of earthen primordial named Grumbar. Grumbar took a piece of himself, created a truly titanic slithering creature, and then there's a bunch of stuff missing, and then it talks about the geographical features of the Razorfang Mountain Range.
So it gets me going. So is Kasuth also a child of them or not?
Of like Pita and Atira.
Is it kind of like that type of?
It's like, yeah, like the mentions of Pita are more common than there's only like 2 mentions of Atira in it, where it's like Atira kept Grumbar at bay more than anything else. Where Pita is like, think of like, if you didn't speak Greek and you were depending on someone who only spoke like contemporary Greek, translating the story of Kronos and Zeus, that's kind of the feeling that you're getting here.
Okay.
It's what's not clear is if Pita and Atira were ever actually like deific entities themselves, or if they're just the name of like how some cultures refer to Mother Nature, or, you know, the ocean is a cruel mistress, that type of thing, you know?
Okay. Changes the way I think about.
Changes the way you think about God.
The deity connections.
Yeah, like they're not. It feels more paternal than it does sibling wise. It feels like there's a tier, some sort of up there, but it doesn't, like, you're not sure of the sense of like giving them an entity of like, and actually being like, because gods and deities often represent themselves in some sort of like either humanoid or like actual personification or something like that. This feels far more abstract, at least for Pita and Atira. like the biblical description of what an angel looks like with all the wings and eyes and that kind of thing. Not really, but it's fun to think about. Okay, great. So that's what you're doing. This takes a while because you're flipping very, very, very slowly and carefully through a stone tablet. I want to do Zemdak next just because she comes to you. Actually, you know what? No, fuck it. Yeah, let's do you. Actually, you know what? Fuck it. I'm sorry. Let's do you. I want to know what you're doing. let's do Eleazar, Demetrius. Let's go. What do you got for me?
So I did grab it was, I guess, strategies.
Crossbows for dummies.
Right, you went to the CHILD section.
Right, and I also want to go to the SHEI, that section.
You want to go to the shit section?
To the shield section.
Okay, cool.
About how to.
That's more like armaments and arms. You're looking for armaments and arms.
There you go.
Okay, cool. So you go for the dummies, the children section, pretty much. And you're looking for the crossbow thing. Go ahead and do me a favor, roll an investigation check for me.
Investigation, that's crazy. 10.
10. Okay, now describe me specifically what is it you're looking for about crossbows.
How to use them more effectively in battle.
Okay, cool.
How to,
crossbow basics
right.
is pretty much what you're going to get with a 10.
Right.
You find a very, very basic crossbow basics book. It's it's a pretty short book, but it reads like an instruction manual. Which is pretty much like describes the different sections of a crossbow, like the curve, the actual bow, the string. I don't know the actual parts of a crossbow myself, so I'm not going to be very good at explaining this. But like the tension bit, the trigger, the stock, and that whole thing, and it like you can find a couple diagrams of what it is, and then it just kind of describes to you the basic physics of how a crossbow works.
Okay.
As far as techniques on how to use them, it's pretty much like load the crossbow, make sure you don't point it at yourself, aim at what you're pointing at, pull the trigger. Don't pull the trigger, squeeze the trigger, and that's about it.
Okay.
And then it just says that in a bunch of it just says that in a bunch of different languages and a bunch of different ways as to what it's going to say. But that's pretty much what you get with the 10.
Okay.
You find a crossbow for dummies.
Okay.
The other thing you were looking for was shields, so arms and armaments. You head over to the arms and armament sections. Go ahead and roll an investigation check, and then tell me what specifically about shields you're looking for.
19. How to use them more effectively, not defensively, but offensively as well.
Okay. So you're looking for offensive shield tactics like shield bashing and moving palisade, moving armor walls and stuff like that.
Right.
Shield wall tactics, those kinds of things.
Right.
You got it. Interesting. Go ahead. You got a 19 on that. You find actually specifically actually a whole section of it of a couple volumes of like about 8 volumes of different books talking about certain contingents of the crystal brand that are taught specifically how to use their weapons or their shields as weapons. In fact, their weapons themselves have spikes on the outside so they can bash people and use them as weapons. Granted, the Crystal Brand's current job mostly, they've kind of been their kind of colloquial whatever the word I'm looking for, occupation is to kind of like terrazine firefighters, but they're also adept, like standing army, guard, city, that whole thing, and they're very, very good at what they do. So they used to not be called the Crystal Brand. They used to be called something else. They used to be called what is just known as like Razor Fang Regulars or Morbed Murphys. But they're not. But they've like since now that the nation is no longer at war, they've fallen into more of a civil role. But you do find a lot of quite a bit of like overhead battle strategy. Like it almost looks like how Michelangelo did the human. The
Vitruvian Man.
Thank you. Say it one more time.
Vitruvian Man.
Vitruvian Man, but it's like Vitruvian Man. Thank you. Sorry, the Vitruvian Man. But it's like stances, like consider yoga stances, but for battle, and it's like stances of how to use your shield and like dance steps for battle and how to move your weight and change your center of gravity so that when you do push with your shield, you completely knock the other person off their balance and off their center of gravity, and they're gone, and they've already taken a bunch of piercing damage from the stripes.
It's
So
like those teach yourself martial arts books where it's all like, do this, then do that.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's very that. And so there's a couple diagrams. So you do see what looks like some what were called razor shields, was the name of the shield itself, and the name of the one of the frontline infantry contingents during the war with the elves that were used as like Viking shield wall infantry that would move slowly forward and then bash and then move slowly forward, and to be just this impenetrable just force of will of defense. And then it even makes mention of like, okay, then break here to allow the mechanical infantry, which you, with your passive insight, understand, okay, this was when like Warforged would come out and then be like used as shock troops coming out of the razor shield wall. And so you do find quite it's quite interesting. It's very, very interesting as far as historical, like especially you as an urban bounty hunter, you were like, oh shit, if I could get a couple of people to do that, we'd be unstoppable.
Are there pictures of these shields in the book so
Yes,
I can get
absolutely.
a good idea of what it looks like?
Absolutely, yeah. There are quite detailed pictures and packs. There's even like there's even cross sections of the make and material of it. It looks like some of the officers' shields, the absolute tip of some of the points on the spikes of the shield were made of adamantine, whereas the internal composite was a copper and bronze core with a steel coating, which allowed for to have less weight, but still be able to be just as firm and sturdy. And even some of the very, very high-ranking officers had it coated with mithril instead of steel.
So I'm going to assume that there's no way to make copies of this book.
There's the sketch artist artificer.
The only rule we were given is that they can't leave the archive.
Okay.
And you have a day pass.
Okay. Because you know what I was thinking about.
I mean, if that's what you want to do, you can go ahead and try to roll a sleight of hand check to see if you want to rip a page out of a book.
No, I'm going to look for...
There's the old rubbing technique.
Okay.
You like put a piece of paper down in charcoal. And
These look to be on paper. This is on paper.
Oh, okay.
This looks to be old information that was once on like sheets of metal that has since been transcribed because it's used so often. So there's several copies of these books. Like I said, there's 8 volumes, and there's several copies of these books because it looks like this could be possibly required reading for people that are who want that they need to, you need to know where we came from in order to know where we're going, that kind of thing for troops and everything. So this is like that kind of armaments, like, hey, look at what we did back then, let's improve upon that model.
Okay, so I don't want to tear a page out because I want them to get the same knowledge, but I do want to somehow get this into Gizmo's hands or someone's hands so they'll know what I might be looking for in the future.
Could always ask the librarian if she can make copies for you.
Right, I know, that's what I was saying.
Like silver a page or something.
You would have to commission a scribe to do that type of thing.
She's a scribe.
I'm a scribe. Professional scribe.
So I go looking for Krishini.
Okay, cool. That takes you a while because you're looking through quite a bit of stuff. I'm trying to like line it all up so we kind of all coalesce
We're
around
all
the same
gonna be
time.
Like, oh wait, did you see?
Like, look what I got! Really, you all start talking at the same time.
Well, yeah, all of a sudden, DJs used to be all like, okay, so this all cascades together and the group comes back together
Exactly.
at once.
Yes. Okay.
Log's going to come over while you're distracted and just go, Frasheni, here.
So I will say that most of the book stacks here are made of a metal, but some of them, especially because constantly sometimes have to add more stacks as they get more information. Some of them appear to, especially the more recent ones, are made out of mica wood, like the fungal wood of like the large from the mica forests and the Donderol, of the Donderol. What is it called? The Weald, the Donderol Wold, or the mica wold near Donderol. Yes. So what you find these armaments near one of those more. The mica wood, and so it has the more books that have been transcribed from old copies, and there's several copies of it now because again probably is required reading for those that are studying to be officers or that type of thing. Cool. So that's what you're doing. We're gonna do Zemdak next, and then we're gonna do you last, the bard, of course.
Exotic metallurgy.
Exotic metallurgy.
So the smelting of the rarer ores as well as like any alloy information.
Great. So yeah, there's a quite a large section that has to do with craftsmen. It's very near the arm and armaments section, armaments and arms section that has to do with craftsmen. Now this isn't a craftsman's archive. However, there is always need for blacksmiths and craftsmen on the field of battle. So this has more to do. This section it's nowhere near as large as the section that Eleazar is in. But it definitely, as you're kind of perusing it, has more to do with how to set up a blacksmith really fucking quick and churn out a ton of iron swords really, really, really fast in order to arm your troops as like in a mobile camp that needs to keep moving and that type of thing. But go ahead, roll an investigation check for me.
17.
So you're looking for how to smelt and deal with exotic metals and rarer metals and materials. You got it. You find one book that is, it's called Much Ado About What You Have. And it specifically has to do with how to make weapons out of whatever you have laying around when you don't have much and you're not near like a mine. So it has to do with how making weapons out of like bone, making weapons out of wood, making weapons out of enemy weapons. Specifically, there's a section in here that has to do with ironwood. There appears to be mentions that kind of like offhanded mentions that the ancient Elven Empire during the war had once used ironwood weapons during their fight. And there's an author's note here that appears they're frustrated because they control the supply of ironwood because it's beyond their lines. But you also know of the fact that ironwood is still here in the Razorfang Mountain range too. So there must have been a way that it got here too that wasn't part of enemy weapons as well. So who knows what that's about? That's something a little bit more that you're not quite able to discern here. What you are able to discern is that what you figured out before about ironwood is that once the wood itself is like scared, actually petrified, because it is a living being, just like a tree. It is then like solid, it's shocked into that form, and it's far more malleable before it is. So the better you make it feel, the more malleable it is. But once it's actually petrified and terrified, it is stuck in that form, and it's going to keep that form, and it's pretty really well. The other thing is that there are a couple things about doing triage on Warforged here, about how you need to give the ironwood anxiety so it's just firm enough but still flexible that it's able to work as musculature for the Warforged. There's this specific author goes at length about 2 chapters in about the tickling technique. Come on. And it's a little bit much, but they swear by it. And they said, oh, but like what works for me is a leaf from the Shalian Cradle, from the forest of the Shalian Cradle, specifically the Lyanvir forest, because it's something that's familiar yet also like, so it's like where their walls are just enough down, the ironwood's walls are just enough down because it's familiar, but also like hee tee, like, not really exactly what they were looking for. So that's what you understand about here. they talk a lot about Ironwood because that's something that was part of triage, especially during the war, because a lot of the Warforged were made from Ironwood. There are also mentions of adamantine and mithril, and most of them say talk to your superior officer, because if you have adamantine and mithril, you wouldn't be reading this book.
Anything on alloys, like different mixtures of things, and what their uses would be?
That's a very good question. Anything specific that you had in mind? Because that's pretty broad.
I mean, if you've just got scraps of this and that, like what
Sure.
can you put together to make something useful?
There's basics of how to make steel from charcoal and iron. There's basics on how to make bronze with copper and what's the other fucking metal? Copper and
Tin.
brass.
Tin.
Well, no,
Tin.
brass is
Tin.
different.
Brass is
Is also an amalgamation.
right.
Yeah.
So it's also an alloy. I can't remember, but you get the idea. Like how to bake basic alloys is in here in order to how to work certain things. Like there's even a diagram of one of the razor shields here
Okay.
that is talks about how if it's one is snapped in half, how to reinsert brass or bronze into the hollow in order to keep the constituent material firm but still lightweight. One of the things I will say, one of the other things you get with the 17 here is that it does talk about bone weapons here. Now it talks more about. It doesn't. One of the author's notes right away when it talks about bone weapons or armor, here right away is like, I'm not talking about cannibalizing your enemy's bones in order to make weapons. We don't do that here, and I won't talk about that. At least like it almost feels like there's a bad taste in the mouth of the author of somebody else or other people that would have done that, and he doesn't agree with it and he will not discuss it. He talks more about finding bones of long dead creatures or of creatures that you've hunted while you're trying to feed the troops. There's specific things about rotate that have been slaughtered in order to feed the troops, and then using every single bit of the creature so that nothing goes to waste. And they talk about how that humans who followed the ancient ways of the old gods, which to you thinks primordials, taught him how to do this.
Okay.
Meaning that they knew what they were doing and they taught him how to do this. You are quite familiar in the fact that those humans that like were similar to like the monkish orders and had like those primordial old gods kind of like connections did their best to stay out of like stay neutral within the war, but at a certain point it becomes inevitable because you have an entire force sweeping in a continent. Eventually they're going to get to you. So you find some things about bones. You also find an entry that talks about, I don't know where the fuck this bone came from. And he's baffled, but he also doesn't give a shit. And it talks about how it was bones that had come, that not even his mithril could work with, and that had come from the northern wastes, which the only reason why you know that it's the northern waste, because he doesn't call it the northern waste, he calls it a section of the north in which a recent cataclysm had happened, and leaving much of the flora and fauna dead, gone, and arid and desolate. And that there were either survivors or travelers that had come from there bringing bones of unknown origin that he was able to fashion into some weapons and armor that he's very, very proud of, but found that he wasn't able to like mark on them or do anything with them. He just had to band them together as best as he could. And then he kept one for himself and a necklace around as a good luck charm.
Okay.
That's what you find. This takes about just as much time because knowing Zemdek, he reads every word with extreme precise. So he takes his time, make sure he doesn't miss anything.
I picture Zemdak like skipping every third word. It's like his workshop.
I
Everything.
feel like he would
in a
skim
different
the book to
spot.
see if it seems interesting, and he goes like, okay, maybe, and then he would go back and make sure he doesn't miss anything.
Like reading the chat. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like flipping through it.
Sure, yeah. Okay, cool. So that's what you're doing. Cole,
Yes.
you are looking for, if I remember correctly, information on Drugan Knockback.
Yeah, I have a couple of things I want to look for in like the Jurgen section, actually.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
Especially-
he has his own section. That's correct.
Especially after the talk that I just had with her about my book.
That's correct.
I would.
Because they said that you have like a first edition.
Yeah.
Right.
Two things that I want to look for.
You got that from
Paige.
Paige, that's correct.
Is I want to see about finding another edition of it in the library and compare the two.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's not too hard to find. Go ahead and roll an investigation check for me.
And then the other thing that I would like to find in that section and see if there's a book there that I can't read.
You got it.
9 plus 3 is 12.
12. You easily find another edition of said book, but it doesn't look anything like or even have the same thickness or page. It's called The Trials and Tribulations of Druid Knockback, but that's one of the only things it has in common with the book that you have. Granted, the book that you have has been very difficult for you to read. You've only been able to get like very small tidbits at a time because it is a very, very, very old Dwarvish dialect. You speak Dwarvish, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So it's a very, very, very old Dwarvish dialect. And so like it's one of those things where you go through and translate a couple pages and then you go back and read your translation. And that takes a while. Because it's not, you know enough to be able to translate it, but very, very old dialect. It's one of those things where you're going to have to do
Just like
this
we were talking
piecemeal.
about with modern Greek verse.
Exactly, like
Yeah.
it's something you're going to have to do it piecemeal. The book that you read, in common, completely. There's a common, and if you flip it over and read it from the back, it's in Dwarvish.
Okay.
So it's one of those things where it's like it's like those R.L. Stein books where you read it upside down and backwards, and it reads a different language, and it's like you read the pages only one side of the pages, or if you flip it over, it reads a different type of pages. One's in common, one's in contemporary Dwarvish. Far thinner. You're just kind of flipping through it. There's far more of a theatrical like flourish to the book, almost like it was meant to sell copies of it. Less content. There are no illustrations except for the front cover and the back cover. You can like kind of flip through it and skim some stuff. It's pretty light on the actual like literary descriptive content.
Okay.
By that I mean it's more about emotions and broad strokes and less about like actual events.
Okay.
And it reads more like a novel that tells a story about a person in third person rather than what you've been able to discern so far from your book, journalistic stream of consciousness first person.
Okay. So it's kind of like the more modern one is more like reading like the Adventures of Robin Hood comparatively than.
Similar, yes.
Okay.
Rather than an actual first-hand account.
Okay. Cool.
That's what you find with that. You wanted to look for more information on him, or
Yeah. The other thing that I'm looking for in this section is if there's a book that I cannot even like try and read.
in a language that you don't understand? Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's several. I mean, there's the Trials and Tribulations of Drugan Knockback has been translated into every known contemporary language.
Okay.
So there's several versions of that which you aren't able to read. There are a couple of books that are in Gnomish. Quite a few books that are in Gnomish. You don't speak Gnomish. There are quite a few books that are in Infernal that talk about. Well, you don't really know because you don't understand them. But it doesn't appear. They don't appear like malevolent. They're just matter of fact. Like they're just kind of up there, almost like they're different translations of different books.
Okay.
But based on the iconography and the graphics on here, they probably have something to do with forging or fire or just like maybe some religious context and stuff like that. you also find, because you're in the Drugan knockback section, particularly,
Yeah.
you're in like the folklore section, pretty much.
Right.
Like, you're
Yeah.
not, you're,
I was looking more for the
like,
historically factual books
yeah,
about
yeah.
him rather
You're looking
than-
for like, and that's the thing with this time period and with this world, historical facts are very kind of wibbly wobbly, right?
Yeah.
You know, the line between historical fiction and historical facts it's very, very thin, just because of the way literature is, the nature of literature and time passing. So some other things that you notice, there appear to be some books here in the language of the arcane, of which for you don't quite understand. You don't speak Draconic, correct?
Sorry, Draconic? No.
Draconic, no. So that you don't quite understand that. Nothing that appears to be talking of magic, at least the way you can understand it, just appears to be books that are talking about, at least from their contextual as to where they're like located, probably like just the nature of the ambient magics of the Razorfang Mountain Range, that kind of thing, and of like the ambient magics of possible folk characters of yore, that kind of thing. Is there anything specifically that you can't read that you were looking for? Because there's quite a bit here.
I was looking for like Elvish or something like that potentially.
There's some Elvish, and there's some Sylvan. The only reason why you can recognize it is because you are in a library, and you are a bard, and you have other party members that have pointed those languages
Well,
out.
yeah,
to you
I mean,
before.
we were literally inside an Elvish tomb. Like, I should be able to at least spot what Elvish looks like if I can't read it.
Those are scant. Those are pretty scant.
Okay.
Those languages, they are here, but they're pretty scant.
Okay.
Is there any, as far as what they are, you don't know.
Right.
It looks like the context of these have kind of been left pretty.
It's on Discord.
You put it on Discord.
Okay. As far as like trying to understand what is in the content of these books via the context, it looks like whoever like stocked these books didn't really put too much care into figuring that out, given the proclivities against Sylvan and Elven languages.
Right. I'm gonna try and find like the oldest Sylvan Elvish book that I can, and then I'm gonna go try and find Trisheni. I know who has the language spell, and it ain't me. Got rid of that for some other spells a while ago.
Great. So you kind of like wander aimlessly through this a little bit. What I will say is one thing that you realize is you're starting to grasp the gravity of the copy of the Drugan book that you have itself.
Right.
And you're starting to understand, like, okay, this might be what I have already might be a little bit more of a source of knowledge than I entirely realize.
Right. One last thing before I go find Trisheni, if I can.
Sure.
I would like to try and see if I can find a book on like combat medicine or something like that there.
You have those punctures and...
Yeah, I was just seeing if I could find anything else to take a look at. That's about it.
Sure. If you want to head over to like the triage unit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I will go try and find Trisheni to check out this old Elvish book I found on Drugan.
Everyone's giving you shit to read.
I know.
You get a little... I did not roll really well. You get a little turned around, and you find yourself... there appears to be one of the classes from the War College is exiting and beginning their like library time. So you kind of get turned around and trapped in a section with these people, and they're all like, "Don't be rude." They don't say anything, but you like kind of get the look on their face of like, "Don't be rude. Don't push through. Just like sit down and read your book." And you're just like, at the risk of being like entirely impolite, you're kind of stuck where you are. So if you want, you can sit down and start reading one of the books that you have.
Yeah.
What book would you like to read?
The one that I picked up in Minheim, we haven't decided on which one that is yet, because you were supposed to send me a list.
The one you picked up at...
I picked up a Drugan book in Minheim.
Right, I'm sorry. The first edition that you got was the one you picked up in Minheim. The one you got from Page was a more contemporary version.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the one that you picked up because you haven't really cracked it yet.
Right.
That's the one that you find out. So
Okay,
because the one you
so-
picked up from Page is one of the more contemporary. It's like a 14th edition. That was you were able to like read through, and it sounds a lot similar to one of these guys. The one that you picked up in Minheim, yes, is the first edition.
Okay.
So you want to crack that and take a look at that, and try like doing a little bit of translating. See if you
if I
get the
can, yeah.
passages.
Yeah.
Sure. Go ahead. Do me a favor. I'm going to say, seeing as you're a bard, I'm going to have you roll an intelligence check at advantage because this is your ballywick.
You said intelligence check?
Yes.
Nat 20. 420.
420. 420. You got it. Okay, cool.
Well, I rolled a nat 20 and a 17 though. So
Got it. Okay, so I'm going to introduce a little bit of a new mechanic here for this book. This book, like I said, is a stream of consciousness, kind of first-person type of journal entries, journal entries that you're not like quite sure you entirely understand because it's a very old dwarvish dialect.
right.
Okay, so the way you're going to have to do this, you're going to have to every time you want to like sit down and take a few hours or some time to try to like translate it and really like get what it is via your bardic training. This is something that you can do, and also being your bardic training, you'll have to roll something to see how much information you get. You'll get like some passages and some like a nice chunky section out of it. But also being the bard that you are, your like kind of natural insight into the written word will also be able to have you discern and experience the written text in the way that the person who wrote it felt in that moment. As you kind of read between the lines and feel that like, bardic energy, troubadour type
It's
feeling.
kind of like reading that those historical
Yeah.
account ones, and you're like, oh crap, I can actually like see
Yeah.
the gunpowder smear. Yeah.
You get
Okay.
like you get into that whole mode of the storyteller. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to read them as to you as they would have been written or expressed or spoken by the author.
Okay.
Granted, the accent, of course, does not come across because it is written word.
Right.
So, period. You won't really have what you. So the only, I have to preface this with the only really iteration you have with this first edition of it being one of the books of the Trials and Tribulations of Drugin Knockback, because it's not called the Trials and Tribulations of Drugin Knockback, but the like foreword and the it is the same as the foreword of the actual Trials and Tribulations of Drugin Knockback. It just looks like a dusty old journal.
Okay.
So I'm going to read this to you. This is what you are able to translate over like the next hour. I'm going to say. I half expected it. Okay, I mostly expected it. All right, fine. I knew it was going to happen. The chances against it were just too astronomically minuscule. I mean, why wouldn't they put one in our doomed ragtag troop? Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of surprise when I finally laid eyes on them. Their long ears and hair almost mocking all the lives that had been shorted. It was astounding how they could look so effortlessly elegant given the state of the world and the part they played in it. It wasn't hate, no. It was something more complicated. A wave of visceral contempt, followed by an ebb of apathetic acceptance. Like being greeted by the cold and bitter wind of winter when leaving your tent in the middle of the night, immediately realizing that you must brave it, regardless, in order to relieve nature's call. My eyes laxed from what I'd hoped wasn't a noticeable widening, as I painted on a more stoic expression. I mustn't let them know what feelings they elicited from me. I mustn't ordain them with such power. I finally forced myself to meet their eyes, and a smile, an actual smile, spread across their face. And not the menacing grins I had seen before, laced with malevolence and a complex of superiority. No, it was genuine. I couldn't tell how I knew, but I just did. There are those that thought they were incapable of kindness. unless it was to their own kind. But maybe... Then I noticed their stance. Knees buckled slightly inward with a foolish squat, and a hand that had been awkwardly thrusted forward, fingers outspread. I was wrong. It wasn't kindness. It was idiocy. They were an idiot. Why Vardaran had sent this one in particular, the reasoning truly escaped me. Yet the ebb pulled me back yet again as I reached out and grabbed the limp yet tense hand before me. It was so soft, and the skin pristine, like the flesh of a baby. Not a callus or scar to be found. Wonderful. Not just an idiot, but a coddled one at that. Was I expected to play babysitter to this invalid? Moradin, take me, I thought to myself, as I forced the ebb through my mind once more. This is important. I need to take this seriously, however fatuous they may seem. I was forced out of my head by the sensation of shaking, two arms strung together like a wet noodle in the wind. I prayed, truly prayed, that this action would end soon, but my prayer was interrupted by a mellifluous voice that I couldn't quite peg. Wonderful to meet you. I've heard so much about you. I'm Caliban.
Caladin or Caliban?
Caliban.
Caliban.
Callibn. And that's what you get before you head over to Trisheni. And who else heads over to Trisheni? And you head over to Trisheni. So everybody swamps Trisheni at the same time.
I think.
And so Argus, I believe, does too, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
And I was trying to find
Zemdek,
Zemdek and Argus.
So you're like on
maybe
your. So
just-
you see Zemdek in the distance, and you're on your way to Zemdek, and then the rest of your party just intercepts you.
Hey,
I see
hey
this
guys.
and I'm like, ooh,
Hey, I need some
something
help
must
with
be
this
going
book.
on.
I need some help with this book.
Okay, what's
I thought this would be interesting, but I gotta
No,
go.
this book, like,
Okay.
I need some help with this book, like, right away. Come
All right,
on,
I
Trisha.
mean,
No, but
I'll
this
read
one I
this-
think would be really interesting.
Log, give
to
yourself a sec. Wait, Log, wait. I
Okay.
need
I'll
I
read
need
the-
this shield
I found a.
Archives, library.
here. Oops.
Sorry.
Cole was just
Sorry.
like trying to be like quiet. That's why he's like.
The rest of the group is
I-
like, gotta get that Trisheni, help us out.
Yeah, Cole's just going. Like quietly.
You have to go. All right, I'll read this later.
Low priority. I thought you would like it. But yeah, I gotta bounce.
This is not low priority.
I just want you to roll luck check. I just want to see if you are any like surreptitious or suspicious at all, like any type of like suspiciousness as you just stroll out.
Don't be
Are you bringing
suspicious.
Treg and Moonchild with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
they're going with that.
Would this be, like performance or deception?
So just straight.
Yeah, just straight roll.
11.
11. Yeah, you leaving early?
Yeah, I think I've found what I was looking for.
All right,
It's really interesting stuff you got in there.
Well, come back anytime.
I just might. I'm gonna be around tomorrow, so.
And you leave. You just hang out outside.
So I'm going to go back to the Wailing Wall, but
Okay.
as soon as I get outside, Tommy Flanagan.
Okay. You search these, don't you? And make a list of
I
ugly
have- I
people
have
you
a-
could be.
Yeah, I've got a list. Yeah.
I love it. Okay, cool. So, Log lets you guys know that he's headed back to the inn, the Whispered Wall, the Quarry's Qualm. So it's going to take you a bit to get there, but you'll find your way there, and you do so.
okay.
The rest of you swarming Trisheni.
Look at this shield.
That's a super
Isn't
cool.
this amazing?
That is super cool.
I could really bash someone's head in with this. Do you think that Zemdek could make this shield?
I mean, I would assume so, but Zemdek.
I need you to remember this for me because I can't remember this. I forget too
mean,
much
I
stuff.
can copy it. I mean,
Okay.
that's not my purview as much. Maybe Zemdek could have like a photographic memory with that, but yeah. I can.
Argus, the Smith guy, he would also be able to figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can
I have
study
some
sit
extra.
for you if you need, but
Oh yeah. I mean,
so I can always study sit for you if you need to.
Okay, cool.
Trisheni, I don't know if this will be of any use, but I found it in the Drugan section, and I don't know why elves would be writing about a dwarven hero, but I thought maybe there might be something useful in here.
It is interesting, like the fact that they even...
And I found it in a dwarven city, too, which is even more perplexing to me.
Right. Interesting.
You mean like one of the Druvan knockback books written in Elvish and Sylvan?
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you know right now, just to save you some time.
Yeah.
Just passive insight. It is such. Think of it as like a Cervantes Don Quixote. All right. It is a book that has been translated into all languages just for the purpose of being spread about in all languages.
Well, that's again why I don't read this. I'm saying it might be useful, it might not be. Yeah. That's all I was doing there.
Okay.
It's just a copy of.
Yeah. I mean, it's nicely translated, but it's pretty much the same thing that what you got before.
You just do that. Flip through it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so
I see them all gathered together, so I come wandering over. What's up, guys?
Hey, so a couple of things. Check out this cool shield that Eliezer found in this book. I'm more than happy to help write it down a bit.
Isn't it cool?
This is awesome. Lightweight core, steel jacket, spike. Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool shield.
Do you think you can make this?
I could probably make something like that.
Cool. The other thing I
was like, wait, mine's more important.
You know, I was just reading this thing on using bone as weapons.
No,
We
shush
still have-
deck, and he just pushes your face. Mine's more. Look at this, really old stone book. Got stuff about primordials and stuff.
That is really important too.
Yeah.
Shit, I'm gonna. Well, I mean, I'm not unhappy about being here all day, but I'm like. Okay, so. I know. All right. Specific section that you want to look at more specifically, or
No, just this book.
the entire book? Do you want it copied? What do you want But it's stone.
The important parts about the Earth primordial and
Cool. So
stuff like
the
that.
whole
There's a bunch
book.
of stuff missing.
Okay. All right.
helpful.
Exactly. Okay.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you there. Sorry.
I'll try to copy
Is
those.
Conk in here with you guys?
Yeah,
And this
He's
is-
just holding the books.
yeah. He's following me around as like my book rack.
Yeah. He's like your book trolley, but he's just
Amazing.
bipedal.
Overall, just from
Can't
my
talk
understanding,
about
this is still a very thin stone. Could it be copied over with the rubbing method or no?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I would say I would ask you to do a sleight of hand check or a dexterity check, just in general, just because rubbing requires a certain amount of pressure,
Yeah.
and this is very brittle stone.
Yep.
I'm not saying it's going to be like severely difficult. It's just, there's a chance that damage would happen, so I have to give it a little.
Yeah, of course. Okay. All right. What did you end up finding? I feel like this is a treasure trove of information.
Oh, just how to make weapons out of what's on hand. I was looking for something else, but I got sidetracked. Found this cool book, and time get away from me.
It happens. I understand. Speaking of a really cool book, I need either yours or Argus's help to help me get this book off the wall, off the shelf. It's actually been bolted basically to the shelf. I mean, if you have a way to get it might be helpful.
I mean, I can take a look.
It might really help give us some insights into some of the larger patterns we've been seeing. So,
Okay.
all right. Let me show you to that, and then I'll start working
Conk
on...
just starts following you around with all these books
Clonk, clonk,
that
clonk.
they want Trisheni to either transcribe or make copies of or figure out more about.
And then I'll make... Because it's a single page, I'm imagining I'll do yours first. I'll make that copy, and then...
Yeah, it's about 3 pages, just because it kind of has all the images and a little bit more of the diagrams of what it's made out of. Granted, it doesn't give you blueprint instructions on how to make it, but as an artificer,
That's all right.
yeah, you can.
I got the idea.
If you get this information, you can figure.
You're more like,
don't need to copy it
finished product.
I don't...
That's what it's
okay.
like inside. I can
all
make
right.
that.
All right. Cool.
Yeah,
Ideas
there's no
up here.
weight
I'll figure it
ratios,
out.
but
Alright.
you're able to figure it out. Yeah.
Okay. Sweet. That saves me 30 minutes. That's great.
I still have that one dragon fang. I'm thinking the spike on the front of the shield could be that last.
Oh,
little
no,
fang.
put it on. use that. Put that dragon fang on top of the scale, the dragon scale that we have too.
Oh, and have like the dragon scale be
The shield kind of thing.
like the what is it called? The center of a shield that has that metal bit.
The
Boss.
The
Yeah.
boss of the shield. Cool.
yeah, or you could have it be like a two-sided weapon, like have the different effects for it. So it'd be-
Right.
yeah, super nifty. Okay, yeah. So
Ideas.
you've got that.
I got that.
Okay,
Don't worry
okay.
about
So which
All right.
what are you doing first? Are you doing transcriptions or are you working on this rivet first? On this bolting first?
She's doing the copying. I'm going to go over and see if I can get
Okay,
it.
Yeah.
cool. You're doing copying.
I'm doing copying because.
Just do me a favor. Save me some time.
Yeah.
All the rest of them you can copy without issue.
Yeah. that's-
Because you're a scribe and you have done so. What I will say is that you need to roll a sleight of hand check for the fragile stone one. So go ahead and do that for me.
Okay.
I'll let you
I'm
know how
assuming-
long this is going to take overall.
I'm assuming Argus would at least cast guidance.
Yeah, I'm
Maybe
assuming he
if-
would too.
Okay.
Yeah, he's too invested in this not to.
If not, yeah, I don't think because he has enhanceability on himself right now, so I'm not
That's
going to
true.
take that away from him. But it's just, but at least guidance. Come on. All right. Sleight of hand.
Yeah.
18.
18. Okay, you do not damage the book.
Yay! Great.
And you get pretty much 80 to 90% of all the information that is here. Just some of the stuff you aren't able to copy just because the grooves aren't like deep enough. But from what you aren't able to copy, you could probably extrapolate some information. It's mostly syntax errors that end up being replete in the copy that you have, especially since you have comprehend languages, and it's in some sections it feels more like robot talk.
Yeah.
Or like, why use many words when few words do trick kind of deal. But yeah, you're successfully able to do that. And the
Okay.
rest, you're going to just spend a couple hours copying.
Okay,
some
and
other
I
stuff.
will, as needed, virtually cast comprehend languages and re-up that.
You got it.
As needed. So
You got it.
That's
Very great.
hang
Then
out
the rest of you, you guys can just. I think the rest of you are, except for you, are going to be there with her, just letting her know this is the kind of thing I want. Just kind of letting her know exactly what is, like what she can skip and what she doesn't need to add, and what you want copied, and you just. And you're spending the time flipping through your Drugan book. So
Yeah.
you're kind of spending the time with her, in order to just give myself.
Okay, now since Zimdek said that he's got it figured out, I probably wouldn't need to stay with her anymore, correct?
Sure. Do you want to go do another thing? I'm going to say Argus and given the fragility and the density of the primordial book, Argus is going to stay here to help you
Yeah.
with certain things, especially since he's guiding you along the way. Cole, you're going to be staying here too because it's a lot of information you wanted to copy.
Yep.
You want to do something else?
Just gonna follow Log back to.
Okay, you're going to head back?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So I'll say that you would eventually arrive around the same time back there. Zemdek, you walk over to the spot where and you see this thing kind of riveted / bolted, and
Is it like the four corners?
it's the four corners, yeah.
yay.
Okay, Conk. I'm gonna
Oh
need
my
you-
god.
I'm going to need you to fall down when I get to 3. Okay? Just like drop all the books you're carrying and just like fall over. Can you do that?
That's for sound. It's a distraction.
Big
I'm
bottom
pretty
roll.
sure.
know
The
anything,
very
you're
fragile book is
trying
no
to find
longer in
Log
his
back
hands,
to
thank
whisper.
goodness.
I'll just like put some more like of the
I
metal
mean,
plate books
he
in
lives
his
to
arms.
serve, so he'll do
I'll
whatever you
put
tell
some
him
like
to.
more of the metal plate books from
Sure.
the nearby shelf,
Ching.
like in his arms. Instead of falling over, just drop those.
He looks at you like, that's disrespectful, but okay.
They'll survive. They'll be okay.
Does he have a face to do that expression?
He just does
No.
that head tilt thing, or like body tilt thing, because he kind of got like an R2D2 head, right? So
On 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
and that's where we're going to take our break. All right, guys, we'll be back. Head over to the next episode if you're watching this in post. But if not, stay hanging there. We'll be back in a couple minutes. Stay safe out there, guys. Bye.
Later.
Bye.